I feel like my husband, 26M, puts things off until I, 26F, end up handling things myself plus 3-year update. Alt account because my husband is on Reddit. My husband and I have had a rocky relationship. It's been 3 years since we've been married, and I always hoped it would get a bit easier. I feel like we've tried a lot of different things to improve our relationship, but I often find myself feeling defeated and sad because it seems like nothing will ever change. Right now we're in the process of moving. I stayed behind to finish things up at our house and he's gone ahead to start working. We're literally starting from scratch. I sold everything, including our cars. We have to have a car, so I asked him to buy a car and have it ready for us once I'm ready to move. He's met me with so many excuses and I'm just tired. I'm finally flying to meet him next week, and there's still no car. It's been a month. He mentioned to me offhand the other day that he was planning on buying a car once I fly in, but doesn't that defeat the purpose? All I asked was that he had one ready for when I arrived. I really don't want to go car shopping the second I get off the plane. I was excited and hopeful about the move. We talked about how things were going to change and he seemed so motivated, but now I feel defeated again. I don't even feel angry anymore. What was I expecting? I'm not sure what advice I'm looking for. We get along pretty well when there aren't any big life decisions involved. He's a nice guy, I just don't trust him to take any responsibility in the relationship. I guess, has anyone been in a similar relationship? How did it go? When was it finally enough for you? Is there anything that can change? I'm really interested in starting couples therapy, but I'm afraid of putting effort into something that might not even work. Update. Hi Reddit. I made a post 3 years ago about my husband not taking the initiative when it came to purchasing a new car after a big move. My post didn't get too big, but I've always liked seeing updates and a lot has changed in 3 years, so I decided to log back in and make my own. I don't know how to link the original, but please take a look at the post history if you want to see my first post. After making the post, my husband had made an appointment to go look at cars. I remember feeling really good about everything in that moment. I felt a huge relief knowing that this big thing was finally getting taken care of. When his appointment came, my husband called to tell me some good news. He had seen one car, decided it was good, and told me that this is the one we would be buying while he was still in the dealership. I asked him to tell me the details, like how much the interest was and how much the car cost. I asked him if he had compared it to Kelley Blue Book to see if it was a fair deal. My husband was kind enough to ask the salesman everything, but after each question he would add, "I'm sorry my wife is making this so difficult." I was pretty hurt and embarrassed by this, and told him so, but he said all my questions were frustrating and were slowing down the process of the one thing I had asked him to do in the end. He decided to wait for me to arrive so that we could sign for the car together. I ended up getting picked up from the airport and taken straight to the car dealership. We got a good interest rate on the car, but we ended up overpaying by about $7,000. I should have said no to the car and just looked myself, but I was young and embarrassed and I felt like I wasn't being supportive. Thankfully, that car ended up being our only shared piece of property in our divorce. I didn't trust him to refinance the car, so I ended up taking it. We owed so much more money on the car than what it was worth that I couldn't get it refinanced for several months. I ended up trading it in. And even though I'm still in the hole financially because of it, I am so much happier now. We did try therapy before ultimately divorcing. My ex-husband was quite the prodigy. He was cured, his words, not mine. After a week he said that he had it all figured out and didn't see the point in continuing. He also told me that he was the only one who had ever put any effort into the relationship, and that it was 100% my fault that we were divorcing. He told me that no one would ever love him again if I left and that he might as well off himself because there's no point in going on when that didn't work. He said that no one would ever love me again and that I was lucky that he has stayed around as long as he did. He then asked me if I would forge his signature on the divorce documents because I was basically forcing him to do it anyways. I did not. Anyway, I'm happy to report that he was successfully able to move on from the trauma I put him through. He's still around, but I've kept my distance because I can't be bothered, so I'm unsure of what he's up to. I was able to find someone after some time. My boyfriend is so kind. Sometimes I feel like it's too good to be true. Then again, I get Twitter-pated when he does simple things like taking out the trash, cooking, or maintaining a full-time job, so the bar is in hell. He's a great guy, and he does more than the bare minimum, I promise. Looking back, I knew that I wanted a divorce. I just wasn't ready to admit it. My ex-husband didn't love or respect me. I didn't put many details of the relationship in my first post, and I don't really feel the need to put it all out there now, but I know now that if someone truly loves you, they make sure you know. Stories number 2. Am I the asshole for ignoring the groomsman? This happened at a wedding I was a bridesmaid at a few weeks ago. I, 35F, have never been married, no kids, and more than likely will be the last of my friend group to get married. I've been a bridesmaid too many times to count. Almost always, I get paired off with another single guy. My family and friends treat this as an attempt to hook me up with other single guy. They think it will be so romantic if we tell our grandkids who we met at a wedding. I've never been interested in these guys. At the last wedding I was at, I was paired off with the groom's 42-year-old stepbrother. Off the bat, I wasn't interested in Dave. If I were to see his profile on a dating app, I would immediately swipe left. Back to this wedding. I get through the ceremony and now at the reception I run into some old friends haven't seen in a long time and didn't know they would be in town, so we spent the night together, catching up and covertly watching a VGK game someone was streaming on their phone. Editor's note: VGK is short for the Vegas Golden Knights, a U.S. National Hockey League team. The bride came up to me and asked if I wanted to sit with Dave. He was alone at a table and wanted to get to know me better. I told her, sorry, I wasn't interested, and went back to talking with my friends. If Dave wanted to talk to me, well, he's a grown man and can do it himself. I spend the night hanging out with my friends, having a great time, and didn't think much of it until a few weeks later I see the bride at a party and she doesn't even greet me. She just tells me that I was a B for ignoring Dave. Apparently he thought I was cute and wanted to get to know me better. He just couldn't because he struggles with social cues. At least I could have just saw with him for a few minutes and be nice to him. First off, I am sick of being nice just to make a man happy. I told her that I was just there to be a bridesmaid, not to be a minder for a middle-aged man. She still called me out for being a rude, stuck-up B. Was I the asshole? Or was the bride being out of line? One more thing, a few months before the wedding, I started to see a guy I met at a conference. I never told anyone because I wasn't sure if the relationship would last at the time. I don't plan on telling anyone until we hit a milestone because there would be some pushback. It's an international LDR, even if I was single. I'm still not interested in Dave. Update Tuesday. Hello, I made a post about a year ago about a wedding I was at where I ignored the groomsman who wanted to hook up with me. It didn't get much attention, but the comments were pretty life-affirming. I've been going through a pretty hard time for a few years now. It's frustrating to see your friends find that one and settle down while you're struggling to navigate your 30s alone, especially when you're from a family and a part of the country where if a woman isn't married with kids by a certain age, something must be wrong with her. My family and friends mean well, but they don't always see how their actions hurt me. Dave did try to reach out to me after the wedding, but I just blocked him. I haven't seen him since, nor do I care to know what he's up to. I stopped talking to the bride. I really didn't appreciate the name calling or being expected to babysit a middle-aged man. Anyway, I wanted to update on this story so I can close out that part of my life. After the wedding, I just made it clear to everyone I'm done being a bridesmaid. I am officially retired. If you're getting married, good for you. I'm not going to be a bridesmaid, not even for an all-expenses-paid bachelorette trip to Cancun. I think the fact that I was getting drunk and watching a hockey game with friends at the reception said it all. I'm just burned out from going to too many weddings. That retirement because official. Over the summer I had mentioned that I was in a LDR. It didn't work out, but it did introduce me to a pretty big career opportunity. One spent a pretty big chunk of 2024 applying for this gig, waiting to see if I got hired, and when I did, close out my life in America. I'm now living in Australia. At a job I love and being able to be my own person. I cut my hair, I got some tattoos, I found a hobby I love, I have new friends who run on the same vibe. I don't think I'm going to get married. If I do, that's great, but at my age, I don't think kids are in my future anymore. And you know what, I'm starting to accept it. My family doesn't, but I have siblings with kids so my parents can spoil them. I think I just needed to get away from a really restrictive place in order to find my own happiness. Thanks guys, I really needed this advice in my life. Still love the VGK and now I can rep for them from down under. Stories number 3. I, 32F, just found out my boyfriend, 36M, has been gambling behind my back and lost over $21,000. I don't really know where to go from here and could use some advice. We've been together over 3 years, and we've lived together for 2. It wasn't my money, thank God, and we don't share any bank accounts, but over 18 months that's what he's blown in crypto casinos. I only found out because I wanted to make a budget for us and asked if I could get his bank login to see his monthly statement, and after some hesitation he said, if I give you that you're just going to leave me, and came clean. He said he has been gambling for months and spent thousands. I don't think he even knew the extent of what he spent. But he gave me his login and I did all the math over 21K over 18 months, and that's only as far back as the bank would let me see. It could be even more than that. Some days he spent hundreds, one day he spent almost 3 grand. I am stunned. I caught him once before in February and he had spent $700. I told him if I found out he gambled again it would be a deal breaker, and he swore he wouldn't do it again. Well, not only had he already been doing it for months, he continued to gamble the very next day. That could have also been his chance to come clean and tell me about his problem, but he was too afraid of the consequences. In the meantime, he always complains about being broke and we never do anything. No dates, no trips, and I don't need lavish gifts, but surprises now and again would be nice, and he would always say that he would spoil me if he could, but he just doesn't have the money. We also adopted a puppy in July, and although he paid for half of her cost, I've paid for everything ever since, all her vet bills, food treats, training classes, crate, etc. He owes me about $600 and he could have paid me back or pitched in this whole time, but sat back and said nothing as I paid. The same goes for our apartment. Nearly everything in it I have paid for, and the excuse was always, I don't have the money for it. I just always took him at his word. Even though he makes twice as much as me, he always paid bills on time and his share of the rent, but still had no problem with the above. He says he is going to go to counseling, has an appointment booked, and is going to a GA meeting on Monday. I told him I was going to my parents for a few days to get some space and he begged me to stay, promising that things will be different and that he will change. I feel I do love him, but I feel so betrayed and I don't know how I can ever trust him again. We could have done so much with that money. He could have done so much with that money just for itself. It's so disappointing. If I move out I can't afford to live on my own and will have to move back in with my parents. If I stay I'm scared what the future will look like. Any advice would be greatly appreciated, especially from anyone who has experiences this or something similar. TLDR, boyfriend gambled away $21,000 of his money behind my back and lied about it. Update. I gave it a lot of thought, and I decided to end things with him. We'll be giving our landlord 60 days notice, and for now I've moved back in with my parents. It was a really hard decision and I feel horrible. I love him and miss him, but I couldn't trust him anymore and, ironically, couldn't take a gamble on my future. I hope I made the best decision for him and for me. I want to thank everyone that reached out and gave me advice. It really helped and made me feel less alone in this. That's all for now. It's time to focus on myself for a little while. Stories number 4. Am I the asshole here for telling my 19F daughter she will have to move out of my house if I get divorced because of her lies after her stepdad saw her naked? Throwaway account due to the situation, but I need to know because I'm getting calls and text from family calling me an asshole for not being on my daughter's side. My husband and I have been married for a little over 5 years now. I will say my daughter 19F and he has an okay relationship, not exactly father and daughter but almost advice asked and given relationship. Basically I have never picked up on anything weird from my husband towards my daughter, and my daughter has never said or insinuated anything at all as well. On Thursday me and my husband was watching a movie in the living room. We paused the movie. As he got up to use the bathroom I heard him knocking on the door twice, literally 3 knocks each time on the door a couple of seconds apart. It was loud enough for me to hear him knocking from the living room. The next moment I heard screaming. I rushed to the bathroom and saw my daughter completely naked, covering herself and yelling at my husband that to get out. I didn't see everything that happened, but what I saw after I heard yelling was my husband literally fell over his own feet and struggling to get the bathroom door closed. I asked my husband what happened and he said he knocked. Nobody answered, so he went in and my daughter was naked in front of the mirror and he tried to get out. After my daughter calmed down I asked her side of what happened and she said she was changing, and all of a sudden my husband walked into the bathroom. I asked her why she didn't answer him when he knocked. She said he didn't. I told her I heard him knock, so I am sure that he did. She said she didn't hear it because she had her ear pods in listening to music. We got the situation sorted and my husband did apologize to her and explained he thought the bathroom was empty and walked in. She even gave him a hug and apologized for yelling at him. The problem now is my daughter got family members involved and they are now calling my husband a creep. Got a call from my sister berating me for still having my husband in the house. I asked what she meant and I came out that my daughter spun a whole other story and left out the fact that she was listening to music with her ear pods and is telling everyone that she answered him, and he still walked into the bathroom to look at her. We have cameras in our hallway and it proves that my husband did knock, as you can see it on the video, but the cameras has no audio. I sat my daughter down and asked her and she denied saying anything like that or that she told anyone anything. I got mad and asked then how does your aunt know what happened, and she went silent. She said she talked to her niece about it and she must have told her mother. I asked her why did she lie about what happened and made my husband look bad. When he did nothing wrong she again denied lying about anything and I told her what my sister told me. She just started to cry and say sorry, she was just talking and making up scenarios with her niece. The whole day yesterday I got calls and text from my family members as the story spread. The wrong story is spreading and my husband is looking like a creep to everyone. I sat my daughter down again and had her read some of the things being said about my husband and told her she has to fix this because her lying is what caused this. She refused, saying she didn't spread this and she only told her niece and doesn't want to say anything to anyone because they will think bad about her. She said they know my husband and this will just blow over. Everything did blow up when my husband walked into the living room with his bags packed and said he is going to stay with his parents for a while because he doesn't want to be in this situation anymore where he is made out to be this kind of person. My daughter broke down and apologized repeatedly and said she will fix it. By my husband still left. I told her if I get divorced because of her lies she will be moving out of my house. I told her she better fix what she did and tell everyone what really happened because I will not be losing a man that loves and actually cares for me like my husband does over lies. She asked me to help her and I told her no, she isn't a child anymore and her lies for attention did this. This is on her. I already tried and I'm now also being accused of taking my husband's side and not providing a safe space for my daughter. I don't know what to do. My husband asked for space and my daughter is inconsolable at the moment. I am not in the best state myself. Sorry if my post is all over the place. I don't even know if my title is correct on this post. I have reread AMD reread and it still doesn't make sneeze to me. Update. Sorry for only updating now, but I'm not in the best of places at the moment and it has taken me a couple of days to get my thoughts together. I don't know what to do anymore. My husband has asked for a divorce. First let me answer a couple of questions I saw coming up repeatedly. We have locks on every door in the house. I don't know why my daughter didn't use the lock on the door. The cameras inside the house isn't pointed at any door except for the ones pointed at the front door and back door. The other camera is at the end of the hall and you can see every door in the hallway from that camera. We have a bathroom in our room but we can't use it at the moment. The water is completely shut off due to renovation of the bathroom. My husband has asked for a divorce. On Friday he came back home and asked to talk. During our talk he showed me his phone and some of the things my family members were saying about him was just outright horrible, calling him a pedo. Asking him how many times he has taken a peek before. I don't recognize any of my family anymore. I understand if he actually did something but he hasn't, and the hatred they are showing over a stupid mistake tell me they refuse to listen or they have hated him from the start and is now using this to try and get rid of him. He said he can't ever come back and this has now started to affect his work life as well. He was called into HR to explain because some of my family members have called his office. Luckily they haven't done anything and refuse to do anything until a case is brought against him. They know my husband very well and I think they believe him as well because he is still working. During our talk he explained that he does love me and still does and he is happy I stood up for him, but my daughter's actions have caused him many problems. Accusations and made him scared. He explained he sat at the office and at his parents' home every day just waiting for the police to show up and arrest him. He said her lies broke him and he can't see a way to come back from it. I asked him to reconsider and that maybe we can go for counseling, but he also refused, saying everything is too broken to fix. I told him that I will kick out my daughter and told him about everything I did and told my daughter to do, but he said I'm missing the point. His life could have been completely ruined because of a lie. My family will never trust him again and will always harbor hatred or suspicions about him, especially now that my daughter want to clear things. So long afterwards they will think we forced her to do it and that will just make things worse. He said he will always remain the creep in their eyes. I asked him what if I cut off my family and we moved away because I was already working on that. I showed him my phone and the message I have sent every single person so far that refused to listen and that I blocked them. He asked what about my daughter. I told him again I will be kicking her out and she will be staying with my parents from now on. He asked what if we moved away, will I abandon my daughter then, because he doesn't want to be near her or be alone with her at all. I didn't know what to say about that. Before I could answer he said again it's better for us to get divorced. He said I will never ask you to abandon your daughter. I will never expect you to do something like that, but I don't want her anywhere near me if you abandon your daughter. I don't know if I could ever look at you the same afterwards, even if it was for my sake. The only solution here is for us to get divorced. My daughter came running down the hallway into the living room, crying. I think she was listening to our conversation. Before she could get a word out my husband jumped up from the couch and put his hands out and asked her not to get near him. He said before you say anything I will start to record the conversation now, and took out his phone. I think I saw something break in my daughter's eyes at that moment. At the realization of everything hit her all at once. She asked my husband to forgive her and she never meant for things to get so out of hand. She was just making up scenarios with her cousin and her cousin was the one that ran with it. Moo husband asked her why didn't she clear it up immediately, then she said she did think it will go this far and thought it will just blow over because everyone knows him. He showed her his phone and asked her to read some of the messages and my daughter went completely silent. We talked for a boy 4 hours. At the end my husband said he will give us 3 months to move out of the house because it is his house, my daughter can keep the car because it was a gift, and that he will finish paying this year's tuition but will not pay anything going forward. He said he hasn't gotten a lawyer yet but told me to get one. He will like to do this without lawyer, but if I want to I can get one. He said he will be fair in thr divorce and doesn't harbor anything against me, but he can't stay in the relationship. My daughter was just sitting on the floor looking like a ghost and I couldn't just say anything. Listen to him talk about divorce and what will be split and what not, like it was nothing. He was talking like the last 5 years was nothing and it was just easy to move on. The best way to describe it was like he was returning something to a store. He left the house and I just sat on the couch. I don't know if I was crying, talking, or what. I can't remember much as everything was muffled around me, until my daughter started to full on crying saying sorry, sorry. Sorry over and over again, laying on the floor. I don't know how long I sat on the couch, but when I got up I saw my husband's car still in the driveway. I looked out of the window and I could see him full on crying in the car. Seeing that completely broke me. My daughter and I haven't talked since my husband was here Friday, not a word to each other. My family members have showed up to the house to apologize because apparently my daughter has all of a sudden now cleared everything up and she herself shared the video from the camera with the family members. Every time they show up I just close the door in their faces. I have gotten Facebook, Instagram, calls and text from them, and when I block them they keep making new account of use different numbers. I don't want to lose my husband, I really don't. This is the first man I have ever met that has actually treated me with kindness, respect and love, and now it's all over. I have tried to talk to him and tried to convince him to go to counseling with me, but every time I have tried he sends back I can't take the risk. I have tried to meet him in person but he just says it won't be a good idea. I have gone over to his parents' house but they refuse to let me see him. I have gone to his work to talk to him but I was told he was sent home by his boss. I truly don't know how to fix this. Having my daughter move out now won't work because I need to be out of the house as well. I don't want anything from my husband, I just want him. I haven't talked to a lawyer yet but I don't think I can keep the house. He owned it before we moved into the house. I really want to fix this. I still want to kick my daughter out of the house, but will he still give me a chance to fix it even after what my husband said about me abandoning my daughter and not seeing me the same afterwards? I don't know anyone. Am I really going to lose a wonderful man? Edit. I forgot how Reddit fixates on one thing, the comment about the house I made. I have not intentions of trying to take his house or anything like that. It's not my house. I had questions in my previous post about the house and I think I just answered it. I'm not going to try and take his house. He owns it and has owned it before we got together. I have no right to the house and will not try to take the house. I hope this clears it up. Am I the asshole for obeying my in-laws' wishes too literally? I sent my in-laws an invitation for dinner. We stupidly thought it would be nice if it came from me. Religious greetings, husband, was thinking of inviting you next weekend. God willing, would that work for you or do you have other plans? 10 minutes later, FIL called my husband to tell him they wished the message had been longer and warmer. Husband agreed to let me know for next time. The next day, FIL called again over something else. Husband used the opportunity to point out they still hadn't replied to my message. FIL told him they would not be replying to me until I fixed it and made it warmer. They also pointed out that at my job, I have to adopt a certain tone to be perceived as professional. This is the same in a family context. Since they wanted me to adopt the same strategies I use at work, I figured I'd use ChatGPT to get frustrating tasks out of the way as quickly as possible. I showed the AI my original message, told it my in-laws' complaints and told it to rewrite it super warmly as if I were the perfect, insert ethnicity, daughter-in-law. It came up with an absolutely ridiculous message with emojis everywhere. I copied pasted and sent right after my left on read, invitation. Husband sent it with me and is okay with it. I first suggested to him I could write a genuine message about my grievances here, but he pointed out I did so over another petty complaint months ago and it led nowhere. We decided to go with the ChatGPT message minus some of the emojis. FIL works with AI. I have no doubt he can tell this is ChatGPT. Even MIL will know there is no way either husband or I wrote this. I do kind of feel a bit guilty about the passive aggressiveness of our response. There's a very obvious cultural context here. I understand my culture seems cold to them the way theirs seems over the top to me, but as God is my witness, I have unsuccessfully tried everything else to communicate with them. They have ignored the new message, no phone call to husband. I don't want this to go nuclear, I just want them to say, sure, see you next week, and pretend to tolerate my cooking. Update post. I was here a couple weeks ago because my in-laws did not find my dinner invitation warm enough. TLDR, they refused to reply to me until I wrote a warmer invitation. I thought that was stupid, so I sent back an AI-generated version filled with emojis and obvious AI lines. My in-laws did reply to my second message. Religious greetings, thank you for the invitation, we will get together soon, God willing. I did not follow up and let the invitation expire. They did not come. A bit after that, we had a large family gathering at their place, my husband's grandparents, his parents, their kids and grandkids. I kept the interaction with FIL NMIL to a minimum. I was polite, I greeted them. But nothing more. I felt I had made enough efforts trying to connect with people that did not respect me enough to reply to a text message. In the past, they have always used my lack of relationships with the rest of the family against me. I was not close enough to SIL, or I did not spend enough time with GMIL, and it was proof I was not making any effort to integrate into the family. I have tried to explain their family is very large and it takes a while to build a relationship with tens of people who are already close-knit, but you might as well try and convince a mountain to move to a different spot. Well, not this time. The younger kids have always been easy. They're not as set in their ways and they accepted me very quickly. I spent hours with kids playing all over me. The babies used to cry when they saw me. They hate strangers. Not only have they stopped crying, they smile and play with me now. My oldest SIL also married outside of their culture, so she's always been the most empathetic since she knows what her husband went through with them. My other SIL is a lot more like MIL, hard one to win over, but even she softened and we are now in a place where we get along. The final blow though were my husband's grandparents, FIL's parents. They are very conservative and would have clearly preferred if he had married within the community. The grandmother barely speaks a word of English. I'm not what they wanted, but even they have moved on. They hugged me and they were clearly happy to see me. Between the fact I now feel comfortable with everyone else and the fact I stopped even trying with them, I guess it dawned on them that my problem was not their family, it was them. It might seem like a small thing to the readers here, but such a level of actual awareness coming from them is nothing less than a miracle of God in my eyes. After the gathering, they called husband again and asked him if I hated them and still held a grudge for the fact they opposed us getting married for a very long time. Husband in his infinite patience argued for hours with them and tried to explain that when you treat people unkindly, they do not tend to love you back. He pushed back on the idea I was punishing them and reminded them I have tried very hard for months to get along with them and all I got for it was criticism and ghosting. Whatever else was said during that fight, it seems to have had some sort of effect. They have stopped calling husband once a week to give a detailed report of everything I have done wrong during the last 7 days. While they still cannot accept to see me wearing pants around them, they seem to have given up on trying to convince us I should never wear pants outside my own house. Again, the 21st century reader may be confused by how this constitute progress. I'm grading on a curve here. And for her credit, I think MIL has taken the mental load to try and fix the relationship. She's been the one texting me, giving news and inviting us to a restaurant, all the emotional labor that used to be mine. FIL is still a piece of work, but since his parents now like me, not much he can say or do. Ironically, his culture is now working for me. TLDR, if you have a difficult relationship with your in-laws, have chat to answer their text for you. Stories number 5. Working with a very misogynistic man completely annihilated my sex drive. Hi. I hope that by sharing this I might get some advice and insight as it's taking a big toll on my relationship. I'm not trying to get into all the details because it would be too long, but here's the context. I work with my partner in his business and 2 years ago he hired a man who was seemingly perfectly nice and normal. Turned out he was the most misogynistic person I've ever met, to the point that even our male coworkers were sometimes put off or shocked by the things he said. The worst part is probably that, at the beginning, I really liked him and we were friendly, and I felt incredibly betrayed when I realized the deep-seated hatred that he had towards women makes me feel like I'll never be able to trust a man ever again. To give a few examples of his behavior, he once told us that he showed funny animated videos of DV to the women he went on a first date with, and showed us these videos. He said that he hoped that his future wife's father would be dead so he could do everything he wanted with her. Called female customers whores because they were wearing tank tops, said that women actually liked being dominated and even hit because they enjoy violence in bed. There was something like that every fucking damn day. It ended up driving me literally crazy, to the point that I didn't even want to go to work anymore. He was also constantly checking the way I dressed, and if it was modest enough for his liking he kept interrupting me, shutting me down, was weirdly passive-aggressive, and if he had a bad day, I knew that I needed to avoid him because he would take it out on me. It sometimes felt like I was in a toxic relationship with him, even though I was married to his boss. It took months for my husband to fire him, even though he could see how toxic the workplace had become. I am the only woman working there, and because men apparently can't help behaving like sheep, the other male coworkers that I previously liked ended up imitating some of the behavior. As if him being misogynistic suddenly made it okay for them to talk and behave the same way. It took me telling my husband that he had to choose between working with me or this dude for him to finally react and fire him. This plus evenings and evenings of arguing over that, and a lot of tears from me. From my husband's perspective, he disliked his behavior, but he was an efficient employee. I also think that, deep down, he could tolerate it to some degree since he wasn't the target of the nastiness this dude spouted. He doesn't work with us anymore, and it's been 6 months now, but I don't feel the same. My husband recognizes that he should not have allowed this behavior in the workplace. He did not participate, though, and that it was harmful. But I'm now hyper-aware of things that I used to overlook, ignore, not see, and I watch content creators like Brainwashed and YV Edit all the time. I learn a lot. I try to educate others. But my perspective on men has shifted, and I don't know if it can ever be repaired, and I've lost all sex drive. I don't feel like I can trust men. Even the good ones don't intervene or stop these cruel and vile behaviors. At best, they pretend not to hear. At worst, they participate and encourage them. Has something like that happened to one of you? How can you move on, forgive, and not put all of them in the same basket? I don't want to destroy my relationship because of this bad experience. My husband is victim blaming me, and I'm done. Kinda needed to make a post about it, because this sub has helped me tremendously before understand that I wasn't crazy. I've posted a few weeks ago about the abuse directed at me that my husband allowed in our workplace. For a reminder, I work in his business, I'm an employee, it doesn't belong to me, and a guy that worked for him for 2 years ended up harassing me, targeting me with misogynistic cruel jokes. You're useless because you don't have kids, for example. When I have infertility problems, something he doesn't know, but is deeply painful for me, plus making awfully dehumanizing comments about women in general. It took 6 months of tears, of endless discussions, and finally a threat of me leaving the workplace for my husband to, finally, fire him. I thought he'd learn, but he didn't. He has hired another guy. The other guy has started doing very shady stuff too, like telling me to bugger off the way after only 3 days. My native language isn't English, and I don't know if bugger off is as rude as it is in my language. It might actually be closer to something like, get the fuck out off my way, repeatedly. Plus jokingly asking my husband, in front of me, is she always that annoying, or is she just on her period? Maybe I should add that this dude's favorite game is to pretend to hit me in the face with his fist, elbow, or shoulder multiple times in front of my husband. I know I'm probably an enabler. I know I freeze in these situations because I don't know how to react. Same exact reaction I had when I was rap as a preteen. I know I'm weak. But I didn't expect my husband to just stand there again doing nothing and to tell me that, there must be something wrong with you if it keeps happening to you. Why does it only happen to you? It kills me to hear someone I love tell me that men abuse me because they feel that I'm weak, and that somehow makes me responsible for the abuse. My husband is much older than me. I've met him when I was only 20. He gave me a job, a place to live, lied a lot, dismissed a lot of my complaints when he was doing hurtful things to me. I feel gaslighted by everyone since so many people have told how he's such a great guy, how lucky I am, etc. But I don't feel lucky. I've verbally vomited everything to my parents, about this and more, and, thankfully, they're ready to welcome me into their house and to take care of me until I find another job place to live. I think I've been emotionally abused for 10 years, and I didn't even notice when I've realized that I had infertility problems and wanted to try because I was so scared that I might never be able to get pregnant. He kept playing an awfully malicious game. 1 month he'd tell me we were going to try. And the month after he'd tell me he had changed his mind. It almost made me physically sick until I finally decided to give up on having children. Sorry for being so messy in this post. Thank you for the support I've received before. Stories number 6. Am I the asshole here for being furious that my wife went to a strip club? I'm absolutely fuming at the moment, so I'm sorry if this is jarring. I, 35M, have been married to my wife, 35F, for 8 years at this point, and would have liked to believe that we had a solid marriage so far. My wife has a group of friends she frequently hangs out with who I know and am on friendly terms with. They decided to go on an out-of-city trip, and she asked me if it was fine. Naturally, I told her that I didn't mind at all and looked after our daughter, 5F, during the 3-day trip, from Friday to Sunday night. We've both had trips without the other and there's been no history of cheating or any strange behavior. Imagine my surprise on Monday afternoon when I see her friend update her status with pictures of them at a strip club. I confronted her and asked her what the hell she was thinking going to one. She defended herself by saying that nothing happened at all, but that doesn't inspire me with confidence. How can she just decide that going to a strip club without telling me is fine and dandy? Things have been tense ever since and I've been staying in the spare bedroom. Now I'm here questioning whether or not this was the first time this has happened or if there's been more secret trips to strip clubs or shows. Edit. No, I haven't been to any strip clubs. It was 100% a male strip club and apparently it's controlling to ask why your wife went to a strip club. Update 1. I spoke with her last night once I cooled off enough and asked her for details. In short, the idea of going to one was spontaneous and suggested by the friend who posted the picture. It wasn't a male strip club, but it is one with both men and women too. I still called her out on just going along with this and not thinking that I might have a problem with it. She insists it was only harmless fun, but that does nothing to help the situation. Just because I didn't say strip clubs are a no doesn't mean they're okay. I'm astonished by her lack of common sense. At this point I only give a damn about our daughter and nothing else, because now I'm free to do whatever the hell I want as long as it's harmless. Now our families know about this, but I couldn't care less about how I'm supposedly making this a bigger deal than it is. I know for a fact they wouldn't take this shit from their spouses. I'm close to just muting them for a while for trying to rug sweep this shit before I say things no one wants to hear. I think I'll go up to a strip club in our city and spend a nice few hours there this weekend since it's so fine and acceptable. I really don't care if anyone calls me an AH anymore, so have at it. Update 2. Final update. Am I the asshole here for being furious that my wife went to a strip club? Did what I said I would do and went off to a club on Saturday night. I decided to go with one of my few single buddies just for shits and giggles. Ended up having a threesome with a stripper by the end of the night. Nah, I'm bullshitting you guys, but you'd like the drama, I'm sure. In reality I just vented to my friends and stuffed my face at steakhouse. They agreed that I was completely right to feel angry at her. They have no doubt that their wives would be exactly the same as me if they tried this. I'm still not letting this go, no matter how much anyone tells me otherwise. I'm not interested in shitty excuses or rubbish explanations to this kind of behavior. Once again, just because we did not discuss something doesn't mean I would be okay with it. By that logic I could go and sleep with another woman because we never discussed if that was okay or not. She's refused to see my point or discuss this further, so I gave up on her and told her I was done. I'm going to file for divorce, even if I'll only see my daughter half the time. Now I'm finally being taken seriously by her and my family, but it's way too late for that now. Obviously won't be any further updates, but thanks for giving me your opinions, even if I don't agree with them. Stories number 7. Dad got a ticket for speeding to church. He's making my F16 brother, M11, pay for it with his allowance. Right off the bat I wanna say that my brother is autistic. He struggles to get ready on his own and takes a long time getting dressed or washing up. And mom usually has to step in and help him. Dad doesn't like getting to church after it starts and usually yells at us to get ready when mom takes a while helping him. Dad got a ticket last Sunday for speeding to church and said it was their fault for not getting ready in time. He yelled at mom in the car afterwards and my brother when we came home. But it's not like he's not trying, it just takes him a little longer. I'm posting because Dad punished him and said he wouldn't take him to his weekend basketball class for a while because my brother's excited to get dressed on time for basketball and not church. And he said that that meant basketball was an idol before God. He also said he's not getting allowance until he says so because he's gonna pay for the ticket with it too. This is just one of many things he does. And I'm posting because mom didn't want to talk about it. Is there anything that can change Dad's mind? Because it's not like he's trying to do it on purpose, and Dad doesn't want to talk about it to anyone. Update post. I don't have much of an update besides what happened today, Saturday, and last Saturday. Dad kept his word about not bringing my brother to basketball this Saturday and last, and he hasn't received allowance the past 2 weeks either. Dad also had a family meeting after dinner where he said that the ticket wasn't the main thing, but that there would be changes because God wasn't first in our family, because other things were an idol before God. In regards to my brother's allowance and basketball, he said both were done until he saw changes. But he also said no hangouts shoot around with his basketball friends either. He also said I'm done with my evening tennis classes for the same reason, and he said he didn't care about having paid for them. When I asked about money being wasted, he didn't say anything was changing in his life though. during the time that we would have had classes. He said we were going to start family Bible study instead because we seemed more excited about other hobbies, like basketball, instead of God church, but he didn't apologize for speeding at all, and what kid wouldn't be more excited about basketball than going to church too? A few people asked about my mom in my first post, and I want to add that Dad yells at her too. I also didn't add this in my first post, but my brother has other special needs in addition to autism that make him need my mom to help him with things. Some people said my brother was wrong for not getting dressed on time for church compared to basketball. But I disagree because Mom wakes him up on Sunday after setting her alarm. She helps him wash up and get dressed, but Dad never helps and makes Mom cook breakfast too. So she's running around like crazy as Dad yells and sometimes curses. Mom also has to iron Dad's clothes along with my brother's. I prepare my own. I offer to help choose his clothes the night before, but Dad always said no and that Mom's supposed to help him. Mom also doesn't want me to help and is usually quiet whenever Dad yells at her. And sometimes she seems depressed but doesn't say anything. My brother has an easier time getting ready for basketball because it's in the afternoon when he's already awake, without Dad yelling, making Mom cook breakfast and iron. I'm going to see one of my relatives over the President's Day weekend, so I'll talk to them in person. I also decided not to tell anyone at church because I'm afraid of them telling Dad and us getting punished more. I just hate the idea of having to pretend to be more excited about going to church than other hobbies to please Dad. And I hate being punished because Dad wants to play mind games about what's number one in our lives and such. It's not the first time we've done family Bible study. We did many years ago before we stopped and kinda forgot, so I hope it passes with time, but it seems like we're done with sports for this semester. Stories number 8. Am I the asshole for ruining the surprise my boyfriend organized for my birthday? My boyfriend, 26M, and I, 23M, have been dating for a little over 8 months, and on early November it was my birthday. I was excited, as it was the first time we were going to be spending either of our birthdays together, and he had spent all of October teasing a surprise he was planning. Now, for context, I should mention I have a very complicated relationship with my parents. He knows this, and we have spoken in detail about why that is the case. My parents are out of my life, and have been for the past 2 years. He knows all this. Because of my relationship with my parents, for the last couple of years, I spent my birthday with my best friend, who I consider family. So, when my boyfriend let it slip on my birthday that the surprise he had planned was a family dinner, I had sort of assumed it meant my sister and her husband, and my friend and her partner. I was wrong. The surprise he had planned was flying in my parents from a whole different city. I was confused as to why he would bring them, but I might have overreacted. I don't think I even stayed there for more than 30 minutes before I walked out of the restaurant and drove home. I don't really remember much of it. I just couldn't sit there and listen to my parents belittle me while my boyfriend was sitting there. The next day, my boyfriend showed up to my place. I knew we were going to talk about the previous day, but I guess I was expecting him to apologize. He didn't. Instead, he got angry at me for ruining the surprise he had been planning for a long time. And he said he just wanted to give me a chance to have a normal relationship with my parents. I understand where he is coming from, I guess, but I really didn't appreciate the way he went about it. I told him this, and he wasn't really receptive. He just said that as my boyfriend he had a right to want to know my parents. I can really see what he means, but I can't help to still feel like I'm owed an apology. So, am I the asshole for ruining my birthday surprise? Update post. First of all, sorry for not replying to any comments at all. I got overwhelmed by the amount of attention the post was getting, and I didn't really know how to deal with over 100 people telling me to break up with my boyfriend. We did break up. I wish I could say I confronted him with all the comments and their carefully constructed arguments. Don't get me wrong, they definitely did help me, but I am terrified of conflict, so it's probably not the dramatic update a lot of people were hoping for. I should say, we did technically make up the day after my birthday surprise ambush. I posted about it because I was feeling discontent with how we resolved things. Now I see it's because things weren't resolved at all. He just made me apologize about it without giving me an opportunity to be angry. I thought I could tell him to come to my apartment next week, so I had more time to figure out a natural way to bring it up, and then when we had a conversation about it we could move on from it. I ended up bringing it up after we had lunch together yesterday. While I was driving him back to his place I hadn't even meant to do it, but I didn't know how to behave with the underlying anger that I now had, so, in the end I just asked him why he had done it, trying my best not to sound angry as I generally don't like being angry. He said he wanted to get to know the people that raised me. His answer was bullshit for a lot of reasons, but the biggest one is that I have literally told him that my older sister is the person that raised me. When he met her and her husband, we all joked that it was like meeting the parents. I told him that he had every right to want to meet whoever he wanted, but he had no right to go behind my back and force me to be around people I have cut out of my life. The next thing he said is truly what made me break up with him. He said he doesn't understand how someone can stop talking to their family. I cannot stress enough how many times I have explained to him why I have stopped talking to my parents. He has asked more than once. After he said that, I think I had a realization he doesn't understand me. He has made no efforts to do so, so I told him that after I dropped him off at his place I didn't want to see him anymore because I don't want to put in effort with someone that doesn't care about what I want. He didn't take that well, but his emotions are not my problem anymore. Right now, I mostly feel really sad. I know I'm probably better off like in the long run, but breakups suck, and I did love him. I think I'll be okay. I really appreciate everyone's support. Stories number 9. Hairstylist has been keeping my hair. I'm weirded out. I'm also going to be vague because, obvious reasons. I'm 30 SF and my stylist is 40s. I got my hair cut today at a stylist I've been using for about 9 months now. I think this is my 6th appointment with them. I usually do a trim or cut style. Today I went from long hair, high lower back, to an A-line bob. Again, since I started seeing this person, I usually get current style maintenance trim. This time was a dramatic length adjustment, so they took a picture of the cut length in the floor to add to their social media, then intending to add before after hours too. That's all totally fine and normal. They go grab a broom, sweep up the hair, and place the dustpan on the counter for a bit. Again normal. They grab the broom and pan and head to the back of the shop. They're gone a few minutes, no biggie. Then they go out to smoke. But, here's where it gets weird. The bathroom is in the back of the shop too. I need to go and step into the back. I don't really notice anything on the way into the bathroom. I go, and start to head back out, but I notice my name on a small clear tote on the table. It has no lid and it has my hair in it. At first, I didn't really think much of it, but I looked closer and see it's not just today's discarded hair, but looks like at least a few of my trim sessions mixed with it. Looked like potpourri. And a little sand or something. Printed pictures of the cut hair with dates. The printer is sitting right next to it with today's discarded hair pick in the tray. There didn't seem to be any other containers like this. When I looked around it was fucking weird, so I took a pic on my phone. I honestly didn't know what to think or do and went back out into the salon. They came back in, and I mentioned that I went to the restroom and they seemed to freak out a little but didn't mention it. I didn't really know what to say, so I just let them finish styling my hair, paid and left. As a socially anxious introvert, this was my nightmare. I got home and the more I looked at this picture, the more ick I got. I ended up texting them an hour ago, sending the picture, and requesting they remove the weird box of me and asking for an explanation. I said, "Hey, so I saw this and didn't know what to make of it. Can you help me understand what this is and why you have it? I'm not comfortable with you having this and request you please discard the contents also. Even though I loved my cut, I believe it's best if I find a different stylist." They haven't responded. LOL, WTF. Update. It's been about a week, AMD with the holiday. I've all over the place, but I ended up going to law enforcement to make a report last Monday. I'll likely end up going back if this person keeps contacting me like they have been. I'll give a little timeline. Last Saturday, haircut and discovered the weird tub full of my hair, texted stylist about the weird tub and said I'd be finding a new stylist. Hairstylist didn't respond. This is where I left off in the last post. A lot has happened since then. Sunday I woke up to a bunch of texts from the stylist. It woke me up because, even though I have DND on my phone, I have a setting that overrides that if there are repeated contact attempts over 3, in case of emergencies. Here's what I got, copied and pasted. 3:49 a.m. I'd recommend going to a different stylist because of this. It's not a big deal. Small towns and people talk and you may not find anyone that will take you after this, so I'd reconsider. I don't like threats. 3:51 a.m. So I have your biological material and it's mine property now. I can do what I want with it. I kept it because I can and it means a lot to me. 3:54 a.m. Why you send the pic? I know what it looks like. It's mine. 4 a.m. You need to respond to me because I think it's a misunderstanding about what this is. It's no big deal and you saying you are switching stylists has me triggered. I do good work. You said so. 4:04 a.m. I also charge a $350 client separation fee, so yeah, you can't just say you are switching stylists with more consciences. And I know you said you already tried a few PPL before me. They not many beauty PPL in the area. For 11 a.m., asking for an explanation for a stylist having hair in a salon is crazy. Where else would you find hair? I didn't do nothing wrong, but I will get rid of it if you are gonna cry about it, but only if you say you won't be switching to anyone else for your hair care. You mean a lot as a client and always tip well and indo good work, so it doesn't make sense, and you know that, so maybe don't threaten someone who does your hair or hurt there by making accusatory statements. I didn't respond to any of those that morning because it was so insane to me. I need to process things fully before I make a decision on how to deal with it, so I just didn't respond. Sunday afternoon I start getting phone calls. This person called me 14 times that afternoon. About every other call, they left a voicemail. Most of the voicemails just said, "Call me back" or "Text me back," but 2 of them were unhinged. I'm going to paraphrase, but the gist of the first one was, "Sounds like they're crying, call me back, I'm getting scared you won't come back to me for your hair for real, I just like how your hair feels, that's why I kept it, call me." The second unhinged message was left late Sunday night at 11:38 p.m. and it said, "I got rid of it except for one lock. I found out I like watching your hair burn more than I liked keeping it." I didn't respond to any of those messages, calls, or texts. The whole thing had me freaked out now. I decided by that time I was taking Monday off work to go to the police. Even if they couldn't do anything, I wanted a filed report of the weirdness. I woke up Monday to an email from the stylist with an invoice of $375 for client breach of contract fee as the chargeable line item. Again, copy and pasting here, the email body was just for being a bitch. It was sent from their business email too, so they're really doing everything they can to ruin themselves. Even if I had a contract with this nutter, which I don't, the original amount was for $350. They can't even get their extortion fees right. I did email them back stating that we had no contract, and to cease all further communication with me from this point forward. I got ready and started heading to the police station around 9:45 Monday morning. I live in a rural area, so there are portions of my drive to and from our main town that doesn't have cell reception. When I finally got to town, I had 4 voicemails. I knew immediately who they were from. I talked to one of the officers on staff. They took my statement, a copy of the email, asked me to forward all the texts and screenshots of the numbers of calls. They said, at the least, the calls and texts could be considered menacing and harassment, but the voicemail where they mentioned how they like burning my hair was potentially concerning. The officer advised I contact a legal representative in case this person tries to take the bogus invoice to a civil suit court, and they said I'm welcome to change my number, but having the piling evidence if they continue to contact me after I explicitly told them not to in the email would only help me. I reached out to a lawyer Tuesday and left a detailed message regarding the situation. They are apparently out of the office until next Wednesday for the holiday, so we'll see if they have any advice. I've since received many texts and calls from the stylist. They sent a "Happy Thanksgiving" text on Thursday morning as well. Regardless, they are giving me a lot of evidentiary material to work with, but I'm so unsettled I can't wait to hear from the lawyer this week. Mini update. I woke up to new comments and requests for updates. Firstly, I am okay and safe for now. The person has continued to contact me on a regular basis via phone and email. I do have personal protection that I'm comfortable with and can wield with accuracy, but I'm nearly certain this person does not know where I live, so I don't anticipate any type of confrontation here. Our house and property has complete camera coverage as well. If anything shows up, we're well aware. I will be posting a more in-depth update, with more texts and emails up to this point, and regarding a specific incident that happened on Friday. On Tuesday I have an appointment to speak with another officer then to discuss the potential of criminal action and legal consequences for the stylist as a result. Thank you all for your concern and the validation that this is absolutely insane. I'll leave you with a text from this past week, one I think you'll all enjoy. Question. Use for a model of how not to make friends. 5:12 a.m. 12/4/24. Don't never say never. You are never coming back. Don't make me laugh. I don't want your ass back. You can beg me though, might help. Stories number 10. Am I the asshole for not eating a Thanksgiving dish? I suspect it was made last year. Long time lurker, first time poster, but I'm so baffled about this situation. I need a non-biased perspective. My husband and I, 30-ish, have a quite large family, his parents, his 2 siblings plus spouses and kids, my divorced parents and their new spouses, plus my siblings and their spouses and kids. Altogether we are well over 20 people, so family gatherings can be overwhelming for the person hosting, and yes, my divorced parents and their new spouses get along fine and there's no drama. Last night we celebrated Thanksgiving and as a family tradition everyone brings a dish, usually we communicate with each other so that way everyone is making different types of food. My sister-in-law, wife of my brother, said that she was going to bring her mom's famous sweet potato casserole. I thought it was very nice of her since her mom passed away this year and she was honoring her memory by making her recipe. However, once I saw her dish I truly think she brought last year's leftovers instead of big pan. She brought several small and medium containers of sweet potato casserole. Although it did not smell weird, it was very dry and just didn't look like a regular one. I didn't try it and discreetly told my husband my concerns, who also did not try it. Once Thanksgiving was over, my mother called me saying that my SIL was upset because she noticed I didn't try her dish. I told my mother about my fears and she said that I'm just too picky with food and there's no way a frozen casserole could last a year without having mold. I pointed that the several containers could mean she cut the good parts and left the moldy ones. After an awkward silence, we decided to agree to disagree and hang up. I feel bad for my SIL, but I truly could not bring myself to eat something I am not 100% sure is safe. So am I the asshole? Update to my post. After spending my whole morning reading and answering your comments, I decided to pass by my mother's house and have an in-person talk with her. I read her some of the comments on the original post and she thinks the internet is a strange place. We agreed I can always come and tell her what I think. Truthfully, she has not talked to anyone else in the family about the yam debacle. We decided to call my brother and ask if we can go to his house and have a talk with him and my SIL. He said to brace ourselves and come with an open mind. When we got there, my sister-in-law started crying uncontrollably and my brother took us to the kitchen, which was a mess. Long story short, they were indeed leftovers, just not a year old. I guess sometime before her passing, SIL and her mom had made several family recipes as a bonding experience. The casserole was one of the staple recipes and my sister-in-law had froze several containers of it on Thanksgiving week. She thawed some of it and tried to replicate the taste without luck. I guess the pressure of making it for us got the best of her and she got more and more frustrated. As the date approached on Thursday, she finally gave up and decided to just reheat the ones she had frozen. As to why my SIL noticed that I didn't eat her dish, apparently in prior years I had complimented the casserole as, "This is the best one I've ever tried," so this year she was expecting some comment and was sad when I didn't even try it. I apologized and told her I was really sorry that I hurt her feelings. She apologized for singling me out. We told her to rest and in the meantime me, my mother and brother, we cleaned the kitchen, tidied the house and mom made her a soup, ajiaco, if you know, you know. My mom decided to stay but I left a bit after everything was done and everyone was calm. As a goodwill gesture I'm getting my SIL a mini spa day that I think she will enjoy and help her feel better. So that's pretty much it. No big fight, no big dramatic scene. Sorry not sorry. Thank you all for your opinions. I will be more thoughtful of people's feelings, but I still will not eat something I don't want to just to please someone. No reports that anyone got sick, BTW. Lastly, does my mother think frozen food can get moldy? She claims she said it in the heat of the moment and because I was annoying her. She knows cooking is not my forte, so she thought I had no good comeback to that. I opened her freezer and there's only meat and ice cream, so who knows at this point. Stories number 11. Am I the asshole here for thinking about divorce? I 34F have been with Ken, not his real name, 37M, since I was 16. We met in school as he was my brother's friend. We have been married for 10 years, have a 2-year-old son and one on the way. Ken has always been my person, the person who you can't picture life without, and I honestly can't remember not loving him. I grew up with him, he's my everything. Unfortunately Ken has this issue where he takes on everyone else's feelings like to heart. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. However, recently his best friend of 20 years has just found out that his wife has been cheating on him and none of the children are his. Obviously his friend is devastated and is staying in our guest room. He's a nice guy, just life has him down right now. He started the process of divorce. The more time Ken spends with his friend, the more depressed he's become and distant. Our mornings used to start where I would wake up at 6 a.m. with our son, make breakfast, then about 8 a.m. I could wake Ken up with a coffee and some breakfast before going to drop little one off at nursery and go to work. Ken works from home most days, only going into the office on a Monday, so I'd give him his coffee, he'd give me a kiss and then I'd go off on my happy little way. Then I'd finish work, get our son and go home where Ken would be making tea. I'd clean up after whilst he was bathing our son and putting him to bed. I thought this was life. It might sound boring to some, but it was my life and I loved it. Our house was filled with love. We would spend our nights cuddling, talking, watching a movie. Date night once a month we would take our son out together on a Saturday and then Sunday go visit family or have friends over. You get the picture. I'm rambling, sorry. Anyway, for the past month things have been changing. Ken is more depressed. I make him a coffee in the morning and just get a mumbled, "Thanks." I'd come home from work and the friend and him would be in the living room watching sports. I'm now making tea, bathing our son. Neither of them will barely talk to me. We don't go out on the weekends together. I feel like a single parent. I've tried to talk to Ken about it all, but I get one-worded answers. Then he stays up till about 1 a.m., which I know it's not super late, but I'm passed out by then. I'm exhausted, alone and pregnant. I miss my husband. Yesterday I came home from work and you know when something just doesn't feel right. Well, I went to find Ken to see what he was doing as his friend wasn't in the house, but Ken's car was. He was in his office looking up DNA kits for our son. I asked him why and his response was, "Well, I just want to make sure all the kids are mine before I continue looking after them, as I'm not a free childcare." This broke me. When I say I'm devastated, it's an understatement, but if he thinks that I've cheated on him, then surely the trust is gone. Is there any going back? Am I just being pregnant and hormonal? Would I be extreme for looking for a divorce? I could put the papers in the envelope with the results from the DNA test. I think I'm gonna go cry in bed now. Had to take the day off work as I feel like I've just been gut punched. I've asked my husband to move out. Am I taking this too far? Hello Reddit. Well, after my post earlier this afternoon I cried. Then read all your lovely comments and I couldn't be more grateful. I think posting about it here really helps. For some reason, weird how telling complete strangers that I'm struggling with life seems to help. So I think after my pity party, which couldn't last long due to being a parent, I called my stepmom and dad. My mom died when I was 10, they are coming to stay with me on Friday. Crying on the phone helped, although I'm not really sure they could truly understand a word of what I was saying. I've spoken to Ken, well, more like spoke at Ken, telling him that his friend has till Thursday to leave. I'm not a monster and can't just tell him to leave at the drop of a hat. I've also told Ken he needs to leave too. Whilst yes, I could go to my dad's house, I don't want to disrupt my little one more than needed, and all the things for my baby is here too, especially as I'm 8 months along. It just seems stupid for me to be the one to leave. I've made it a point of not pointing out it's my house either. I'm trying to be calm and sensible. I'm not 100% sure Ken listened, but I did message his sister, who is a force to be reckoned with, and she said she will make sure he's gone by Thursday night. Things I've told Ken I want is, yes, he can have the DNA test, but I will be damned if I'm the one to do it. He can also have one for the baby, as I ain't got shit to hide. I know that some people have questioned why I'm so against it. Let me make something clear. I would never cheat because, as I said in my last post, Ken is, or was I to know, my person. He's the only man I've ever been with, so that isn't any concern of mine. I'm just hurt that he wants one because clearly he doesn't trust me. So things I want him to have the DNA tests, mainly so I can make him eat the results. Not literally, I'm just venting. I'm also going to suggest couples therapy. I already see one due to losing my mom and my little sister in a car crash when I was little. I want to suggest he sees one alone. But you can lead a horse to water but can't make him drink it. I don't want to force him to do anything he doesn't want to do. I want him to maintain contact with our son. Yes, he doesn't believe he's the father right now, but that's no reason he should neglect him, as he's his, and I don't want to upset my son. Yeah, he's only 2, but still he deserves all the love from both his parents. He's done nothing wrong. Then obviously this one, when she comes along. Still not sure about the state of my marriage, but even if divorce is what happens, I need to be able to get through to him so he can be the father he was. Am I going insane? Do I sound insane? I don't know why writing here helps so much. Thanks Reddit. My husband got his DNA test results. He still thinks I've cheated. Hello again. I don't know how to update posts, so I just had to make another one. Following my 2 other posts, I will answer some questions. Yes, it is my house. It was left to me when my mom died. I have lived here all my life. I didn't move out because I have a child and one on the way, so why should I be the one to leave? I get that some people believe I was the for asking him to leave, but as I was heavily pregnant, have a toddler, and it's my house. I wasn't about to leave. Yes, he could have stayed, but have you tried living with someone who just wants to argue or just not talk? I prefer my child not to live in that environment. Thank you. At the end of the day, I'm a mother first and a wife second. If you think that's harsh, then I don't know what to tell you. My children come first. End of. Well, Ken's friend did leave the day I told him he had till Thursday. He wasn't happy about it and shouted some insults at me, which was amazing. Ken's sister came and picked up Ken. I wish I could tell you what she said, but she didn't say anything in front of me, just kept giving Ken death stares. We did get the DNA test for little one and Ken is the father. Obviously Ken somehow thinks I've intercepted the results, even though I wasn't the one that did it. I wasn't the one that got handed the results, etc. So he's clearly lost his mind. My dad came over and whilst I was making tea my waters broke. My little girl is here, she healthy and happy, she was 9 pounds 8 ounces, so no concern of anything with her. I'm now a mum of 2, I am home now and Ken has been to see his baby girl, although as she's not had a DNA test he disagrees with her being his because his family doesn't have many girls, yet. He has a sister, so I just rolled my eyes. I don't really know where to go from here. Ken is refusing therapy. He says there's nothing wrong with him or his brain. I beg to differ. He wants to get another DNA test for our boy but won't tell me when or where, so I can't interfere. Maybe one day he will come to his senses. Got the results, seen how much of an idiot he's been, and we move on, but sadly that's not the case. I can't dwell on it too much, just take shit one day at a time. I do miss my person and worry that he's missing out on his baby girl's life already, which if I think about too much I will just sit and cry, but I don't have time for that. As always, thanks for listening to me rant. I might update if anything else happens in my life. Right now I'm still left wondering if I'm doing the right thing here. Is there anything I could do differently? Why are my kids so hard for him to accept all of a sudden? Am I the asshole for making it difficult for him to find a solicitor? Hello again Reddit. Things have been bizarre, but now I have closure. I know what's happened to my marriage. I know what scum Ken really is. He's not my person and never truly was, so now I just want to divorce him, cut my losses and move on with my life. I'm still at home with my babies, settling into motherhood. My dad and stepmom are still here, but they will be leaving soon once I'm more emotionally stable. To say I'm okay would be a lie, but I now know what I need to do. I have some sort of closure with Ken. I know what happened with him and I know that it's not my fault. Turns out Ken was having an affair and has a baby on the way. Even typing that makes me want to throw up. I found this out when a visibly pregnant lady just knocked on my door and asked me when I would be leaving the house, as it's Ken's house. When I say this confused the crap out of me, I mean it. I talked to this woman for a while to try to work out what she was talking about. It turns out that she's Ken's side piece. Well, technically in her head she's his fiancée. A month ago Ken got down on one knee and proposed to her in my fucking kitchen. Classy, right? So they have been seeing each other for a while. She's having his baby. She believes I'm the ex-wife who Ken is letting him stay in his house till I get on my feet. We apparently broke up a few years ago and none of my kids are Ken's. When I go to work in the mornings Ken goes to her house and works from there. They were waiting for marriage to move in together. How you trying to marry someone when you are already married? Fucking weirdo. I asked for proof of all this. She has pictures of them together. Apparently, she has a account that they make content together. I told her we are still married and explained everything to her. I'm not sure what she's going to do, but hey, not my circus, not my monkey. Now I want a divorce. Is it true that once you talk to a solicitor about divorce they can't represent the person you divorce? I want to go around our town and meet with as many solicitors as possible, as the first hour is free, so that he has a very hard time getting representation. Is that too petty? The house is in my name only and is protected, so there is no way he can take it. I have all my money and we do have a joint account, but that's just what we put our share of household bills in. I haven't spoken directly with Ken. His family have completely cut him off and he's been kicked out of his sister's house. All those people that was concerned about him having tumor or something wrong with his brain, I really don't think that's the case. I think his actions just caught up to him, as his lies were going to come out once his baby was born. I think that's what happened. He got backed into a corner and tried to fight his way out. Through divorce process I will get the court to do DNA testing so he has proof for both, even if he chooses to not believe it. I'm mentally exhausted from all of this and sat wondering how I didn't notice. Might have to go for an eye test. But honestly, would I be so wrong for just making his life as difficult as possible to get legal advice, or is that too far? I want him to suffer. New update. I'm finally divorced and couldn't be happier. Well, hello there again Reddit. I'm okay. I totally just forgot about my ramblings on here. LOL. I'm doing okay. I'm officially divorced from Ken. Ken is now in prison for domestic abuse. I'm not 100% on the details because I wasn't involved. It was his side piece. I'd love to say that sometimes I don't break down in tears and I'm completely over it, but I'm not. I've now gone back to work though. After my maternity leave was finished I got a promotion and now I'm used to living with just us three. My kids keep me going and I'm so proud of them. They go visit their grandparents and dad's side of the family and they have been so lovely and supportive. His sister is still amazing. I don't really know what else to say, just I'm okay. I'm divorced and my children are thriving. I can't thank Ken for a lot of things, but I'm grateful for my children. Stories number 12. Am I the asshole for calling out my boyfriend's family for changing the sleeping arrangement rules to favor his brother and SIL? I, 24F, and my boyfriend Nathan, 26M, have been together for 6 years this year. We traveled to his parents' house for Thanksgiving. For context, Nathan is one of 4 brothers: Alex, single; Jack, married to Jill; Nathan, me, and Luke, married to Millie. Here's the issue. Nathan's parents, Mary and John, have only 2 guest bedrooms. 3 couples tend to visit at a time, meaning someone has to sleep on an air mattress in between the rooms. The first year I visited, I was told they'd rotate who gets the air mattress to keep it fair, but after 3 years on it, we were told it was now first come, first serve. Nathan's job doesn't allow much holiday time, so we're almost always last to arrive and stuck on the air mattress. While annoying, we understood, it seemed logical. This year was different. Nathan and I got Monday through Thursday off and would arrive first. I talked to Mary about how we were to finally get a bedroom, and she laughed, saying, "Yep, first come, first serve." Millie, who I've grown close to, knew we were thrilled about the prospect of getting a bed this year. She even decided to come early too so we could hang out, and we planned I'd take the twin room, and she'd take the queen. Here's where it gets frustrating. The day we left, I texted Mary our ETA. A few hours later, Millie texted me, saying Luke had spoken with Mary, who mentioned Jack and Jill would get the queen room and Luke and Millie the twin room, leaving Nathan and me on the air mattress again. Luke called Mary out, reminding her of the first come, first serve rule, but she suddenly claimed she never said that and justified her decision because Jack and Jill would be staying an extra day. For context, Jack and Jill were arriving a day later than us, so this reasoning felt like an excuse. When we arrived, Nathan brought up the rule again, but Mary got defensive, claimed she didn't remember ever saying it, and refused to budge. I said several sarcastic comments as I felt this was really unfair. I pointed out rules are rules. Until they didn't serve Jill, and that we always do it a certain way until that means Jill has to take the air mattress, and she could come up with any justification, but that doesn't make it fair. I even pointed out it's silly for us to now have to board out dogs and drive 8 hours before anyone else got here just to change the rules. Now she had plenty of time to bring this up. With our many conversations leading up to this, she became increasingly sassy about the situation, leaving us feeling defeated and, frankly, a little targeted. Am I the asshole for speaking up over thinking Mary unfairly changed the rules to suit Jack and Jill, and that we're always stuck with the short end of the stick? Update. I feel like I may have let y'all down on this one based on the advice, but here's how things went. Later Monday night, Nathan spoke to his mom, and we did get the bed for the one night before Jack and Jill arrived. Initially, it was only offered for us to move the air mattress into the queen bedroom for the night, but Nathan pointed out that we were being made to sleep on an air mattress when a bed was readily available. The next morning, Nathan had to run errands where we used to live before we moved. While he was gone, I washed the sheets and remade the bed, even though Luke and Millie told me I didn't have to wash them, just remake the bed. While everyone in the family is very clean, Mary always insists on washing the sheets between visitors. So I did it out of respect for her preferences. Millie and Luke even offered for us to take their bed, but honestly, it wasn't just about the bed. It was about the promises that were made and then retracted. Despite these rules being in place for years, it was also about the gaslighting and the fact that Mary didn't tell us ahead of time, even though there were so many chances to do so. As close friends to Luke and Millie, I didn't want to put them in the position of being uncomfortable on the air mattress either. While I've never had a child myself, I know your body isn't the same afterward, especially your back. We ultimately agreed to move the air mattress into Luke and Millie's room since they had a heater, and it gave us a little bit of privacy. We tried to make the most of the holidays and enjoy our time there despite everything. Later, Mary mentioned plans to get 2 pull-out couches, one for the area between the rooms and one for the twin bedroom. While this was thoughtful, it still didn't address the issue of changing the rules to suit others. Mary has already stated that we'll have a bedroom for Christmas, but if this promise is broken again, we won't stay at their house in the future. Nathan and I have decided that if we don't get a bed for Christmas, we'll stay in a hotel. We're still planning to go because it's Luke and Millie's son's birthday. For Thanksgiving next year, if there isn't enough room, we're staying home. However, Nathan and I are currently planning on getting a house, and Luke and Millie suggested that once we do, we could host Thanksgiving there. They said they'd love to attend. Which is exciting because Millie and I are both avid bakers and love cooking. Whenever Millie and I bring dishes to these gatherings, they're barely touched, except by us and our partners. We're also planning to visit Luke and Millie more often. They are considering moving closer to the parents, and when they host holidays in the future, we'll always have a guaranteed space at their home. To address popular questions for info on the last post. Alex, he doesn't come for Thanksgiving, he only saves his days off for Christmas. Also, he has rarely gotten put on an air mattress, only once that I remember, and that was Luke and Millie's wedding, when all 4 brothers used to come for holidays. It was Alex in the twin, editor's note, twin bedroom. Luke, pre-marriage or girlfriend, on the air mattress in that room, Nathan and I in between rooms, and Jack and Jill in the queen. Hotel. This house is in the middle of nowhere. Closest decent hotel is around 45 to 1 hour. The main draw of visiting is everyone, except parents, stay up late all evening playing board games, D&D and drinking. We used to do a drunk gingerbread making contest. As for the distance to a hotel, that would mean missing out on hanging out. And there are no Ubers here. Also, before we moved this year, we didn't stay as many days and didn't mind staying on the air mattress 1 2 3 days due to what seemed fair to us. We also were the second closest CPL and just didn't get as much time off, which always made us last. Also, we didn't get a hotel this time after the incident. Due to saving up for a house wedding, we didn't have spare cash floating around. Honestly, y'all know this economy and unexpected expenses. Millie and Luke, they live within the state. Barely, it's not feasible for them to stay home or us stay with them. Also, staying with Millie's parents isn't an option. They don't get along and interact due to their child, as Millie believes her child deserves a relationship with his grandma even if she doesn't have a great relationship with her mom. Also, there is no room. Mary. This was completely out of character for Mary. In fact, the only person everyone in the house has an issue with is John. Mary is the one who wants all of their sons home for the holidays and goes out of her way to make sure we'll all attend, usually. Luke does believe the change was due to his dad and their mom was made the messenger because the mom is usually a big person on fairness, and mostly have had no issues, other than ones John pushed her into. This was also backed up by John's reaction to hearing we stayed in the room for one night before this interaction. Mary is one of 4 people that I've stated I'd take a bullet for, due to her normal kindness. Jack and Jill. Most in the house has had an issue with them. Previous holidays they have thrown a fit due to us voting on where to eat, and none of us wanted to go where they chose, so they refused to eat with us. Jill is the main issue of this, and similar things happen every time. This year Millie asked if we could play the board game in their room one night as she was on the phone with her sister playing an online game, and we didn't have much room due to the air mattress. Jill stated she wasn't willing to. And either it was in our room or they weren't playing. They are also the reason we have to board the dogs. Their dog is aggressive and with a small child it's not safe. However, if they aren't attending we are allowed to bring our dogs. Chronic illness. Pregnancy. For all the comments about pregnancy, Jill is not pregnant about health reason. Millie has some chronic illness they are still trying to figure out. Jill used to be on the overweight side but has lost a significant amount in 3 years. I have insomnia. Both Millie and I have bipolar disorder and endometriosis. This is inconvenient due to my period usually hitting during the holidays. Stories number 13. Am I the asshole for the way I act when I'm in my mom's house? My siblings hate me and I know that for a fact. Okay, so I'm currently 13 and I have 5 half-siblings. All of my siblings live with my mom except for me. I live with my dad and I love it, just that sometime I get lonely from being the only kid, so when I get to visit my mom I am happy to be around my siblings, but they don't like me because they think I'm spoilt and I really don't think that true. I am staying with my mom for midterm break and my mom makes shrimp and grits. I don't like grits and I am allergic to shellfish. I remind my mom I'm allergic to shellfish and I can tell she feels bad because she didn't remember, but I don't know what to say. I know my mom wishes I can live with her one day or she can spend more time with me because I live in a different state, but I don't think there's space in her house. Plus I can let my dad be alone. I am the middle child, so I was surprised when my older siblings were calling me spoilt for not eating the food when I explained I had an allergy. Then there was time I stole a juice box from the pantry because my mom only allows one a day and my mom was getting strict and yelling and I have never seen her like that, so I kind of didn't say anything, but I came clean and my mom calmed and let me off the hook, and all my siblings were like, it not fair because they would have had consequences, and I was really sorry about that. I apologized. This one was actually my fault. Another issue was when my mom took us to the city and we went to zoo and got to walk around. While we were walking I saw this street food called halal cart and I had seen it on TikTok and it was $9 for a ton of rice, sauce and chicken, so I asked my mom if I could have some and said that we could share one, and my older sister nudged me silently saying I shouldn't ask and that it was inconsiderate. My mom told me that we'll get something to eat later, but I put together that maybe it was because of money, so I told her that it okay. My dad had given me 100 so I could pay for it by myself, and my mom told me not worry and paid for it from her pocket and told me to keep my money in my bag. I just said okay, but all my sibling ignored for the rest of trip, and when we had gotten home all my siblings called me names and told me off for acting like that, and I should know that our mom cannot be wasting cash on food right now. I told them that I was sorry but I had offered to pay and they just gave me the silent treatment till I went home the next day. I just want to have fun with them and joke with them, but it seems when I'm in the room they just lose their smiles. Even my younger sibling hate me every day of the week. I did something to irritate them. Am I being an asshole by mistake? Internet people, please help. I just want my sibling to like me. Comments. I think I'm gonna do that. I am going to my mom place for a week during my winter break, so I will ask my dad if I can buy everyone Christmas gifts, and when I get to the house I will make sure to not ask for anything money-wise or mention that I have money. My dad always give me money when I visit my mom. My mom doesn't really know my sibling pick on me, and she didn't punish me, she just raised her voice at me a little, and it my fault because I was aware of the consequences, but I thought I was smart and didn't realize she kept track of those things. My mom is a really good mom and she is beautiful, kind and patient, and so are my siblings. I just want to feel like I'm a part of the family when I visit her house and be included with my siblings when they are hanging around together, and even though we are a lot, we never go hungry at her place and we have all of our necessities, and she even tries to take us out once in a while. I am not gonna do that again. I am gonna see them again for 1 week during my winter break. Any tip I will make sure not to offer to pay or ask for anything that requires money. I don't think it that big of a deal. I know my mom loves me and she tries her best. That was the first time I had the opportunity to see her since the beginning of summer, and I only stayed for 5 days that stay, so it had been a while. She always more lenient on me when I do anything wrong, which I really appreciate, and texts me every day. I didn't realize the money issue at first, so I do think it was wrong for me to ask, but I thought it was a good deal because we could all share it. But wasn't it good that I took the initiative to ask to pay since my mom couldn't afford it? I mean, my dad gave me the money with the intention of buying something I want. Update: am I the asshole for the way I act when I'm in my mom's house? I think I made everything worse and need some more advice. I have a short Thanksgiving break from Wednesday to today, and I was supposed to spend it with my mom because my dad is taking me to visit my grandparents out of the country for winter break, so I'm not going to see her in a while. I made sure to buy gifts for all of my siblings and they all liked it, but were still a bit standoffish. I had arrived Wednesday morning, but my dad picked me up yesterday night. And she kind of told my older sister to always keep an eye on all of us. She made sure to tell us this multiple times. When I asked my sister why my mom said this, she was like, he was one of those uncles, but she wasn't really clear, but I had kind of an idea on what she meant. My dad calls me every day, so when he called me, I told him what my mom said because I was getting anxious because I have never had one of those uncles, so I was scared because what if he did something to me? But none of my other siblings were scared, so I just wanted to get it off my chest. I told my dad what my mom and sister told me, and he wanted me to give my mom the phone. I told him it was okay and that he didn't need to tell my mom anything because I didn't want to make it look like I was snitching on her, and I didn't want him to blame her for this because he can be overprotective even with my mom. When he noticed I wasn't going to give him the phone, he said it was okay and that I should stay close to my mom and siblings. I swear I didn't ask him to come. I didn't even think it was possible because we live almost a 4-hour drive away from my mom. He showed up a couple hours later and made a scene and told my mom that she wasn't going to see me again. Why do I always mess things up? It was bad enough my siblings didn't like me, but now I don't think I can even have a relationship with my mom, and I ruined Thanksgiving for my mom's side of the family. My mom sent me a message this morning telling how disappointed she is in me and that if I didn't want to come I should have just said so, but that not what happened. My sister texted me and asked if I was happy now and that it would be better if I didn't come around anymore. I didn't know my dad was going to come that night and make a scene. I can't even repeat some of things he said, but he basically cursed my mom and all uncles aunties present, and I don't even know if I can fix this because my dad is pretty upset with her and my mom is really upset with me. Having a bad relationship with my siblings are hard, but I can't have a bad relationship with my mom. She's my mom. Stories number 14. I, female, am battling cancer. I'm gay, but I have realized I love my best friend of 25 years, a man I need to vent all my thoughts, and am looking for advice on whether to tell him or not. This is gonna be a long post because I'm emotionally flooded and a rambler. I need to get it off my chest. My dearest friend in the world is a man named James, not real name. All names, and nicknames, are altered in this story. I try to describe how great he is, but it's honestly easier just to tell you the story. James and I grew up in the same town. A conservative Christian town in nowhere, USA. The first time I met him was on the playground at school. He saw me sitting alone under a tree and came over to ask me if I wanted to play with him and his friends. I said no, but he noticed I was reading a book about space, the solar system, to be more precise, so he sat down next to me and asked me which planet I thought would be the coolest to visit. We ended up talking for the rest of recess about what we thought the other planets might be like, and when we went back to class he introduced me to his friends as my new friend. We were inseparable from that point on. It was one of those things where the entire town, our parents included, had us married off by age 8 or something. We didn't understand at the time, of course, but I would go on family trips with his family, stay over at his place and vice versa through most of elementary school, get in trouble for talking during class every day, though not really because the teachers all loved him. This dude can charm his way out of anything. It is unreal. We were best friends. When we finally reached the awkward teenage years and dating became a thing, he asked me to the first school dance and I said yes. We sort of started dating by default. I don't think we ever talked about it explicitly, but I just started calling him my boyfriend to other people and we went with that. Very little changed about our relationship. We still basically just did all the same stuff we used to do before, except our parents got stricter about the sleepovers and there was more hand-holding and cuddling. Kissing and stuff was always difficult for me and I didn't know why, but he never pushed me on it at all, not even once. The 2 times we tried he was able to tell very quickly that I was uncomfortable and he just shut the interaction down by messing up my hair playfully, saying, "Enough of that, how about we just watch a movie?" I just assumed one day I would get it. Well, I didn't. Sometime around 15 years old I started to realize the problem. I wasn't sexually attracted to men. This was a very trying time for me. I went over to his house trembling. He had done what he always did, made my favorite snacks and got the controllers and my favorite game, Diddy Kong Racing, ready to go. He opened the door and gave me a hug and I came in. I was so scared. We sat down and he looked at me for a second before putting his hand on mine, asking me what was wrong. So I tried to tell him and I got halfway through the sentence, struggling to actually say, "I'm gay," before he just interrupted me and said, "You're gay?" "Yes, I know. Is there anything else?" Followed by that goofy smile I love so much. I just froze in place. I asked him if he was mad and he just laughed and told me he loved me the way I was, and this was the way I was. I just started crying and jumped into his arms. It felt like 10 minutes at least I cried before he finally interrupted me in characteristic fashion, remarking, "However, I will be mad if you let the pizza rolls I made get cold, so how about we stop crying and start eating?" We stayed best friends after that. We never actually had a break-up talk, but we did start to date other people. We talked, hung out almost every day until we graduated and he went away to a big-name college. The night before he left he came and picked me up and we drove around town and hit all our favorite spots. He drove me back home at 3 a.m. or something in the rain and I took his hand during the drive home and fell asleep on his shoulder. I remember wondering then for a moment if I should just marry him anyway, but he was going away to college. And I'm not attracted to men, so it probably couldn't work no matter how I felt about him. Otherwise he promised to stay in touch, but I didn't know if that would happen. Well, it did. Obviously it wasn't like before, but he made sure to call me every week just to check up on me and see how things were going. I went to college close to home. We talk about how hard college was. Whoever we were dating at the time and whatever drama was going on during his junior year, my parents found out that I was gay. They did not react well and I was basically kicked out of my home to save me. My dad going on about me needing Jesus, 40 days in the desert like a lunatic. My parents are good people, so this didn't last and they have more than made it up to me since and worked hard to unlearn their bad programming. But that was an awful time. I did what I always do and called James. He talked to me for about an hour and then got his mom to drive up to get me so I could stay in his old room. Then he flew home the next day pretty much just to cheer me up and make sure I was alright. Vintage driving around in circles singing like idiots and 2 a.m. junk food runs did the trick. I later found out from my mom that he had also gone and confronted my parents, stood up for me and told them they should be ashamed of themselves and if they were willing to lose their daughter over this they were unfit parents and not the second family I thought you were. My parents worship him, so this was effective, and my mom still tells this story to this day. Once again I remember wondering at the time, will I ever know anyone else in my life who would do this for me? But he was heading off back to college and he was still a man, so I didn't do anything. Years went by. He got married. I got a long-term girlfriend. We stayed close the entire time. We saw each other a lot less, but it was still great every time he visited and we had frequent text calls. I looked forward to his visits all year. And then tragedy struck. His wife divorced him. I never liked her, but he did. I think she used him for a green card and he was too sweet to notice, but that's neither here nor there. He came back home, so I saw him a lot more. Obviously he was crushed, but we got through it together and then I got the diagnosis at age 27, cancer. There's nothing I can say that describes the feeling, so I'm not even gonna try. Decent chance of survival, but I had to start treatment right away. This experience has changed me and my outlook on life more than anything else that's ever happened to me combined. At first, everyone was there for me. I was getting visitors daily, friends, family, everyone, but as the weeks turned into months it all stopped. Most people, even my friends, started coming once a week, then once a month, then many not at all. When things were looking bad around the 7 to 8 month, my girlfriend broke up with me claiming she loved me, but she couldn't handle watching this, almost 2 years in now. And there's only 5 people who are still here: my mom, my dad, my sister, my BFF Amanda, and James. I almost can't talk about it without crying, but James is here every fucking day, every day for hours. He may have missed 20 days in almost 2 years due to work-related travel, and even then he calls me. He comes in and asks how his Amomo, which he's called me since we were kids because I like cows and those are my initials, is doing, and listens. He Brings my favorite snacks treats when I can have them, board games we like to play, old video games on handheld so we can play. He sings to me and shows me pictures of places he's been I'd like to go and talks about taking me once I'm better. He sits there and holds my hand in silence so I won't be alone until the doctors tell him it's time to go. Then he does it again the next day. I've never seen him cry or show any sadness if I even casually say something like, if I get better. He'll immediately interject, when you get better. He just won't give up on me. The only other person who is there like this is Mom. Even my dad's sister Amanda, who have also shown up in big ways, are not this consistent. I could write a whole post about how this experience has changed my relationship with Mom. As well, she's proven to me that no matter what happened in the past and what we may have clashed over, she loves me like no one else, except maybe James. My mom is the one all-time James fangirl. She has been attempting to get me to marry him since I was 7 years old. A long time ago she stopped that, but about 3 months ago she made probably her first comment of that kind in around 7 years. I guess there are a few things she said. The first was, pay attention to the people who are still here now. They're the people who always will be there, the people who love you and not just what you can do for them, which sort of set me off on the whole months-long train of thought that led to this post. Amanda and my sister also make a lot of comments about James. Both like him, and Amanda told me a few visits ago that she thinks I love him. And one reason none of my other relationships have worked out is that the other person can always tell they're two everywhere but the bedroom. Then about a month ago, Mom was a little more direct. After James left one evening she told me, baby, in all my years on this earth I've never seen anyone love anybody like that boy loves you. I know you don't like it when I talk about this, but trust me, if you let him go again you're gonna regret it forever. I don't know what has changed, but this time when she said that, I just knew she was right. Every relationship I've ever been in has had some problem or thing that has to be worked on. Most of them have, several. The only thing missing here is that I don't feel a strong urge to rip his clothes off like I have with some, but honestly, not all or even most, of the women I've been with. But even there it's different. In general I find the idea of being with a man disgusting, but I don't find it disgusting with him. I like being touched by him and being close to him. He's so gentle lately. I even find myself fixating on his lips and daydreaming about kissing him. I'm not that sexual of a person, and I think overall, of the people I've known in my life, I would be happier with him than with anyone else, and it isn't close. Now the big problem is the cancer. Honestly, I'm not really on the fence about this anymore. If I survive, I want to be with him. I am getting better and the doctors are hopeful, but I am not sure if I should tell him now, or not. I want to tell him so bad. I want him to know how much I love him. Lovers have come and gone for both of us, but every time I close my eyes and think about times I felt truly loved, understood and accepted, it's always his smiling face I see. When I think about times I felt warm and safe, it's his arms I feel wrapping around me like a warm blanket, just my size, his voice I hear saying, don't worry Amomo, it'll be alright, or cracking some silly joke. I want him to know that I want him with me, by my side forever. There's nowhere I'd rather be than wherever he is, doing absolutely fucking anything. Cuddling up on the couch, making jokes about stupid movies, playing our favorite video games, talking about life till 2 a.m., driving around in circles while he sings boyband songs like a goofball. I don't care as long as he's there. Too, I want him to know that if I survive this, we will be together. That's what I want. That's all I want. He's all I want. But I'm scared to tell him, because I don't know what's going to happen if I don't make it. Would it have been kinder to just keep this to myself? If you were him and in this position, would you want me to tell you how I feel? Update: I, female, am battling cancer. I'm gay, but I have realized I love my best friend of 25 years, a man. I need to vent all my thoughts, and am looking for advice on whether to tell him or not. If you want the original story, it has a similar title. Here is my update. So tonight I told James the first, told him everything. Gosh, I just wish I could relive this night over and over again. I've never been so happy. He came into my room this evening like he always does, greeted me, hello, how's my Amumu doing today? I told him I was doing well. He told me I looked beautiful, which is not true, but it still felt so sincere. Then he started unpacking the stuff he brought me today. I asked him to stop and just come sit with me because I wanted to talk to him. He nodded and came and sat down next to me. What's up? He asked. It took me a bit to gather myself. I kept getting distracted by his eyes, how he looks at me sometimes. I don't know how to describe it. I told him, I love you, and he just kind of laughed and touched my hand before casually responding, oh, I know that. I love you too. In retrospect, this wasn't the best way to start, I guess, since we've said that enough. With a different understanding that he didn't get what was happening, he started to get up again to unpack the snacks, and I grabbed his arm and asked him to let me finish. He looked confused, but he nodded and sat back down. Basically devolved into reciting the last paragraph of my first post to him. He's the face I see when I think about feeling loved, the embrace I feel when I think about being safe. It doesn't matter what we do, if we're together I'm happy and he's the only thing I want for the rest of my life. He basically froze. He said nothing, just looked at me as I spilled everything. I am not sure he even blinked when I finished and looked up at him. He was sitting there like a statue with his mouth slightly open, still enough it was like he forgot to breathe. James always knows what to say, so this was a little unnerving to me. I started to ask him if everything was alright, but before I could finish his expression broke. He exhaled into a weak but incredibly tender, quivering smile. And he just reached out and pulled me into a hug. I buried my head in his chest and his arms just wrapped around me. I just melted into him. He was so gentle, it felt so easy, it felt so right. Then he started crying. And then I started crying. He's been coming here through 2 years of cancer treatment and never seen him cry till now. He held me for a while, but however long it wasn't long enough. He still hadn't actually said a single word since I finished talking, but I guess he didn't really need to. Then he finally answered my question with, "Now it is." When he finally pulled away, his face was red from crying, but he just looked so happy. He looked at me for a bit. It was kinda cute because he had a little trouble maintaining eye contact, which he usually doesn't. He was like a little boy again. Then he finally looked right at me and he just said, "You are the only thing I've ever wanted." Then I started crying again and he started crying again and he pulled me to him and held me again. I wish it never ended. A little bit later, once we exhausted our crying capacity, I showed him the post. He made a few jokes about wanting to meet this James guy, and about how he had better go and thank my mom for her 20-year wing womanship lol. Then after he finished reading it he kissed me. It felt easy. Not scary at all and just, right. He asked me if it lived up to my daydreams and I chuckled and said yes. Then he said, "I'm not so sure myself, I think I need more data," and kissed me again. He is so ridiculous, but this was smooth as butter. Then after that we started talking, and I guess he told me everything too. He said he'd loved me since we were little kids, told me he still has every drawing letter craft I ever made for him in a safe that he took with him to college and has taken everywhere he's ever lived. We talked about the day I came out as gay to him, and how he'd figured it out earlier, but he struggled to accept it for months in secret because he had lived his entire life up to that point assuming we would be a family and wanting nothing else. He told me he thought about our last night before college all the time and he kept hoping that entire night I'd say something before he left. Then he looked at me with those piercing green eyes and said, "For me, there has never been anyone else. He loved once, me, and then struggled through a bunch of rebounds, and even though he had learned to bury it and move on with life and was happy in our friendship, his heart had only ever belonged to me. Honestly, I guess I should have known this. My dad told me he was sure this was true before, but I didn't listen, but I was flustered, and deeply moved. I joked that he should enter the Olympics as a torch carrier and he said, they'd never have a chance, I'm the greatest there ever was, all." We sat and talked and reminisced some more, mostly about when we were kids. I found out some things I never knew because he avoided telling me how romantic some things were for him after I came out. But I also kinda realized, I think they felt romantic to me too. Then he sang me some of our songs. His voice is so beautiful. We had another embrace and another kiss, both still felt divine. I can't wait to have my hair back again so he can pet it like he used to when we were kids. Then I brought up the sex question, and OMG, it was the cutest shit ever. I barely got to say anything before he started tripping over himself like, "Look, I don't even care, I don't need that. If we need mistresses or something we can do that, it doesn't bother me. I just want to wake up with you every day," which was sweet. But then I told him that even though I didn't know how that would go, and I might not be able to, I wanted to try with him anyway when I got better. And oh my god, he turned tomato red and could barely look at me, literally could not even manage to form a sentence in response, just mumbled incoherently before managing to get out, "Okay. If you're sure." This man has been married and had 6 girlfriends, but he completely just falls all over himself at the thought. God, it was adorable. This is the only thing I'm still a little worried about. But I do want to try. I mean, I liked the kissing, which I thought was completely impossible, and I know that if it doesn't turn out well it won't ruin anything and we'll still be together and just figure something else out for that one need. Then we talked about the cancer. He is so sure I'm gonna make it. It's so touching. It took a little while to get him to take the other possibility seriously when I finally did, and I told him that it's the reason I didn't tell him sooner. He held my hand and told me that if that happens he'd be okay because he'll always know that he was one of the lucky ones because he was mine. Jesus fucking Christ, I almost lost it. Then he said, "If we don't have that much time left." I teared up again and he held me one last time. Then the doctors came and he kissed me goodnight. We both said I love you, but it felt so different. It's never felt so good to say or hear those words. Then he smiled at me and left. I was so excited. The first thing I did was call Mom and she was just ecstatic. I think she might be happier than me. which is saying something lol. As soon as I told her what happened and that James and I are together, she just started crying and talking about what a good boy he is. How she just knew this would happen and that she can rest easy now because she knows I will always be loved and taken care of. Plenty of her destiny talk, which usually gets on my nerves, but honestly I was so happy tonight. Fuck it, I'm on board. Maybe it was destiny. I guess sometimes mom really does know best. I feel like a teenager again. I never thought I'd feel this way again in my life. I never even imagined if I did it would be for a man. God, I love him so much now. I can't understand what I was ever worried about or why I didn't do this years ago. Thanks so much to everyone who read my story and helped give me the perspective and courage I needed to finally do what I should have done years ago now, as long as my health cooperates. I'll be one of the lucky ones too, because I am his. Stories number 15. Am I the asshole here for telling my fiancé my stepdaughter isn't mine? Sort it yourself. I'm a 27-year-old man, and my fiancé is 30. We've been together for nearly 4 years. I have a 6-year-old son, and she has an 11-year-old daughter from previous relationships. Up until now, we've never had any issues regarding the children. Yesterday, her daughter was set to go on a camping trip for a friend's birthday, where they'd be doing activities like kayaking. My fiancé dressed her in a dress, and I mentioned to her that it didn't seem like the right choice for the occasion. She seemed offended and said her daughter could wear whatever she liked and that it wasn't a man's place to judge. I tried to clarify what I meant, but she cut me off, saying, "She's my daughter, not yours." I took my son to a pre-planned match. When my fiancé rang me, it turned out the birthday girl's mom had told her daughter she couldn't go in a dress and needed to wear a tracksuit or something similar, so they didn't let her on the bus. My fiancé then asked if I could leave the match early to drive her daughter to the activity center. I replied, "Why should I? She's not my daughter, and I'm here with my son. Neither of us are talking now. I do pity for my stepdaughter, and I wasn't being spiteful. My son was looking forward to it, and it would be about 4 hours of travel. Am I the asshole here?" Edit. From what I get, I was a bit of an she was a bigger so I'm gonna try and talk it out and see what we both want. Update 1. I had a conversation with my fiancé, and she asked why I would say something hurtful. I replied I was just repeating what she had said to me earlier. Then she asked if I loved her daughter, and I said I did. She asked if it was as much as I loved my son, and I responded, "Almost as much." She got cranky. I asked her if she loved my son. She said no. I asked if she loved me, and her answer was, "Sort of." She started crying, woke up her daughter, and told her they had to leave, though I hadn't told them to go. I said we could talk about it tomorrow, but she insisted, saying he doesn't want us anymore. I told her that I never said that. Her daughter began crying and didn't want to leave. But her mother said, "Don't let me leave on my own. He doesn't want you." I reassured them both that they were welcome to stay. My fiancé decided to leave, without her daughter, and now she's not answering. When I spoke to my daughter's father, he just laughed and said she couldn't even hold off on the crazy until after the wedding. Update 2. I'm not sure if you've all forgotten me, but I'll start with some good news. We've finally figured out how to toast Pop-Tarts properly for my son. We had about 2 weeks of calm during that time. I spoke to my stepdaughter a few times about everything. I reassured her that, no matter what happens, she'll always be my girl. She told me she hoped her mom wouldn't come back. She says her mom was controlling. Then, a few days ago, my ex-fiancée walked into my house carrying 2 grocery bags, acting as if nothing had happened. She asked me what I wanted for dinner. I told the kids to go to their rooms and confronted her. I told her that we're over. She asked why, and when I didn't respond, she said, "Couples fight." As if her actions were normal. Her behavior was unsettling. I told her she needed to leave or I'd call the police. She asked why I was doing this to her. I was at a loss for words, so I picked up my phone. At that point, she backed down, saying, "Okay, let me get my daughter." I told her that if she wanted her daughter, she needed to call CPS and explain why she had disappeared for 2 weeks. She insisted she had only been gone for 1 night. She refused to leave without her daughter and started shouting her name. Her daughter came out of her room and reluctantly said she would go with her. I told her, "You have a place here for as long as you want." Her mother then said, "He'll kick you out just like he's kicking me out." I stood my ground, saying she could have her daughter back. After speaking to CPS, when I started dialing the police, she ran out. Later, I talked to my stepdaughter. She said she was willing to leave because she didn't want to cause trouble for me. I reminded her that she's the child, I'm the adult, and it's my responsibility to look after her, not the other way around. I asked her where she wanted to stay for now, and she said she'd rather stay here. My ex-fiancé ended up calling CPS. They reached out to me, and there was supposed to have a meeting yesterday with my fiancé, but she didn't show up to it apparently. Stories number 16. Am I the asshole? My husband was nicer to BFF than her own husband. I am traveling for work. Kate is stuck at home, working, at 7 months pregnant on modified bed rest. Generally during the week I drop over once or twice to bring her family some dinner. Tim cooks extra portions once a week to share, cheer her up, read her oldest a couple of bedtime stories so that mom can go to bed early and get some sleep. Bert works an office job, stressful, I'm sure, but during her pregnancy he's been working longer and longer hours, salaried, not overtime. She's been sad and a bit lonely. Yes, I've suggested counseling. With that for background, this evening she and I were texting, it was about 6-ish, and she got a craving for a taco place near my house and, importantly, near Bert's office. She says she asked him to grab her some on his way home. He says he's not stopping, he's got work at home and she should just DoorDash something close. This makes her extremely sad, she says irrationally sad, but you be the judge, because he used to surprise her with her favorite tacos and now he can't be bothered. As one does, I tell Tim I'm 3 states away, so it was just part of our chat as I was getting back to the hotel and getting ready for a work dinner. I get back from dinner and Tim had gone and picked her up tacos, remembered the bag of things I'd collected for her and the kid that were in my car, and pulled a tuna casserole from the freezer. Bert hates tuna casserole. He dropped them off on the porch and just texted her that there were some things I wanted her to have. Then Bert gets home. Did he bring tacos, coloring books, or a good attitude? No, he did not. He called Tim to tell him that he was an asshole for showing him up. Other colorful language was also used, including some fairly sexist nonsense. He also texted me telling me to keep my husband away from his wife. Tim did respond rudely when Bert called. Kate says he told Bert he was a failure as a human, a man, a father and a husband. Apparently that caused Bert to scream expletives so loud their daughter started to cry. Not good. Tim then hung up on Bert, blocked him, and texted Kate that if she needed someone in an emergency she knew where to call, but he wasn't putting up with her shit husband any longer. It's a giant cluster and I have no idea what's going to happen. My husband feels bad. Things escalated so much, particularly since their daughter was crying. He feels like an asshole at the moment. Obviously Bert thinks he's an asshole. I think he's a sweet man. What do you guys think? I apologize for screwing up the title last time. I was trying to be brief and wound up being wildly disappointing. My apologies. Hopefully this is more effective. This update is shared with Kate and Tim's permission for reasons. Bert can go fuck himself. Bert did email Tim this morning to apologize. Bert said he had forgotten I was out of town and he didn't realize that Tim was dropping off the meal train food. It was a weird email for many reasons, but Tim responded politely, if non-committal. Tim hasn't changed his view of Bert in part because of what happened between Bert and Kate this afternoon. Bert also texted me to apologize, but I didn't get his message until after I landed and by then everything else had happened. I've elected not to respond. Bert went home around noon after staying at a hotel last night. Kate's sister had taken their daughter to the park so Bert and Kate could talk it out. Short version is that Bert has been avoiding Kate because she's not happy during this pregnancy. I mentioned in a comment that Kate had been married previously and shortly after her first husband died she had complications in a pregnancy that forced her on bed rest. Unfortunately, her son didn't make it. Her current pregnancy is bringing up a lot of painful memories and she's scared she won't be able to make it to full term. So yes, she's not as cheery as she was when she was pregnant with their daughter. It's a difficult time. Bert is frustrated and angry that she's not happy, so he's been staying late and ignoring her until she stops doing that. I know that sounds horrid, but I think they could have worked through those feelings. But as he was explaining how he felt, he said she should be glad her son wasn't there because otherwise she wouldn't have this life at all. Yeah, that still knocks the wind out of me. It's so cruel. She did talk to him about that statement, but the explanation doesn't get better in any event. For her that was just the end. She told him she was done, they can work out joint custody, but the marriage was over. She called her sister and she and her husband encouraged Bert to leave. Currently, Kate's not angry or sad or panicked. She's just done. Personally, I'm surprised since they've weathered some fairly shitty things including infidelity by him, but I guess that was the line. In any event, her D&D friends are over there for Saturday games night and they are eating waffles. She thought it was important for the internet to know that waffles are appropriate separation food. In terms of her well-being, which many kind souls were worried about, they have a prenup. The house is hers, his family property is his. I'm sure there will be a fight over custody, but she will be financially okay in any event. She has family and friends who will help and support regardless of what happens. Update. Kate and Bert are still separated. It took her a few weeks, but she finally spoke to her attorney and asked them to start the paperwork. One problem has been locating him for service and scheduling parenting time so it wouldn't appear that she is withholding his child. The night he was escorted out he apparently went to a hotel, then told his boss he had to work remotely, where the fuck was that option, and then moved home to his mother. Kate has reached out to him multiple times to schedule parenting time and only found out last week that he wasn't in the state. She finally called his mom to see if she wanted to come and see her grandchild for Thanksgiving and learned that he was there the entire time. In any event, they finally made a parenting schedule and, at her attorney's suggestion, agreed he could have the first holiday since the separation. He was supposed to come down on Wednesday and pick up their daughter for a few days so she could spend time with his side of the family. So we planned a Friendsgiving to keep her spirits up since her little one would be away for the first time. Fun. Not fun, but it's what families do anyway. He didn't show Thursday morning. Still no Bert. Kate was worried since he was supposed to drive down, so she called his mom again. Bert was fine, but didn't feel up to dealing with this. Yup, heard it myself with my own 2 ears. Kiddo was thankfully still asleep, so she did have the joy of watching her mom have a complete and utterly meltdown. Kate didn't have the greatest childhood herself, and knowing her POS husband was completely indifferent to his daughter was just too much. She was sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe and then started to have contractions. Then her sister and I started panicking. Had we been thinking clearly, we probably would have remembered that she had BH with both pregnancies and calmly assessed the situation after she wasn't so overwrought. Instead, I panicked, dialed her OB, and we rushed her to the hospital. She's fine, baby is fine. Kiddo has now more screen time and junk food in 2 days than her mother has let her have in her entire life. Because I am not a great babysitter, Kate will be in the hospital for a few more days as her OB is concerned with her stress levels. Her sister's husband called Bert, but thus far he has not made any attempts to do something useful, like, I don't know, take care of his own child. So I guess there won't be a fight over custody. A shitty update, but it's been a shitty weekend. If anyone knows how to cheer up a little girl who is missing her parents that doesn't involve McDonald's and Bluey, please let me know. If there were still Toys R Us, I'd probably be bankrupt. Update: thank you all for the suggestions, particularly you Mama Cass for shaking my brain loose. I had a sewing room full of supplies and hadn't even thought of crafts. We spent all day today designing and making doll clothes and matching scrunchies for her, her mom, her aunt, uncle, cousin, etc. She's happy and tired, and I couldn't be more grateful for internet strangers. On the less good news, Kate is going to be in the hospital for the duration. She and the baby are fine, but due to some complications they want her to stay there until she delivers. Kiddo is staying with us until tomorrow. We live close to the hospital, but she'll be heading back to sister's place, which is close to her preschool, tomorrow night. Kate wants her to have as much normalcy as feasible. I'm still worried, but the doctors are great and seem to have it under control. Stories number 17. Am I the asshole for refusing to let my roommate's boyfriend live with us after he tested me? Which I didn't mind, but over the past few months, he's basically moved in, eating our food, using our stuff, and not contributing a single dime to rent or bills. I finally had enough and told Ashley that Jake either needed to start paying his share or stop practically living here. She apologized and said she'd talk to him. I thought that was the end of it. Fast forward to last week. I was getting ready to head out to a late-night study group when Jake cornered me in the kitchen. He told me he wanted to test me to see if I'd be a good person to live with full-time. I was confused and asked what he meant. He said that if I wanted him to pay rent, I had to prove I was roommate material by showing I could handle sharing the space with someone like him. He then gave me a list of rules he'd want me to follow if he officially moved in, things like doing my share of the cooking, even though I already make my own meals, not bringing any guys over. I'm single, but why is that even relevant? And being respectful of his gaming time by keeping the Wi-Fi free during his streams. I laughed in his face and told him there was no way he was moving, and he got pissed and told Ashley I was being unreasonable. She confronted me and said Jake was just testing the waters, and that I should have been more open to the idea. She accused me of being jealous because I'm single and suggested I was trying to sabotage their relationship now. She's saying if I can't be supportive, then maybe she should get a new roommate, one who respects her relationship. I think this is completely insane, but Ashley and a couple of her friends are siding with Jake. They're calling me selfish and controlling. Am I the asshole for refusing to let him move in after his ridiculous test? Update. Hi everyone, it's been a wild ride since my original post, and I wanted to give an update because a lot has happened. First off, I want to thank everyone who commented. It helped me see things in a completely new light. Honestly, I didn't even realize how much I was being gaslighted by Jake and Ashley until I read some of your insights. I thought they were my friends, but now I see how manipulative and toxic their behavior really is. Maybe I just hated the thought of not having any friends, but who needs enemies with these kind of friends? not gonna lie, it still breaks my heart to realize this, and I cried a lot, but that doesn't change anything. Haha, I don't know why I'm saying this, it's just been a really emotional days, please forgive my rant. Since our confrontation, Jake has gone full victim mode. He's been telling mutual friends that I'm trying to ruin his life and kick him out of his girlfriend's apartment. Let me remind you, this man doesn't pay rent or contribute to any bills, so calling it his girlfriend's apartment is already laughable. He's been painting me as some controlling, jealous monster who can't handle his straightforward personality. Meanwhile, Ashley is eating it up and defending him, saying I'm overreacting and causing unnecessary drama. What's worse is that I've started noticing just how much control Jake has over Ashley. She's completely bought into his narrative and is now acting like I'm the enemy. For example, she told me last night that my attitude is making it hard for them to feel comfortable in their own home. This apartment is 50% mine, but suddenly I'm being treated like an unwelcome guest. I've decided I've had enough. I've already documented everything: his constant presence, his freeloading, and now his smear campaign. I'm reaching out to my landlord this week. Most leases have clauses about long-term guests, and Jake has definitely overstayed his. As for Ashley, I don't know if there's any saving our friendship. I'm heartbroken because I thought she cared about me, but now I realize she's supporting Jake's abusive behavior. Thank you to everyone who opened my eyes to what was really happening. I'll post another update once I've spoken to my landlord and taken further action. For now, I'm just trying to reclaim my space and my peace of mind. Also, I really want to thank you for just caring and being there. This is what I needed to hear, and you all were honest and fair with me. I am very grateful for the support I got that I couldn't get anywhere else, so thank you. Stories number 18. Am I the asshole for lying about being pregnant to my family to protect my husband? My husband is a transgender man and we've always wanted to start a family together. I have a huge fear of pregnancy, so he offered to carry the baby. It was an insane process. He had to stop taking testosterone for a long time, but he was amazing throughout the whole process, and I did everything in my power to help him feel more comfortable. None of my family know that he is transgender, homophobic, transphobic, all the phobic, but our friends know. He posted an ultrasound to his private Instagram, not knowing that my sister follows him on a burner account. Well, she saw the photo and told my whole family. They were furious that I wouldn't tell them. Our plan was to say we adopted. They assumed I was the one pregnant and blew up on me, so I just let it go and rolled with the lie because I wasn't going to out my husband. The first couple of months I'd let them visit. Eventually I'd start eating big meals and purposely bloating myself to the point of discomfort so I looked pregnant. They'd remark around the 6-month mark that I was remarkably small, but I just played it off. Eventually, I couldn't lie any longer. So I looked for every excuse in the book to not see my family. I turned down the offers of baby showers, gender reveal parties, anything that would require us seeing each other. Luckily my family live an hour away and we all live busy lifestyles, so them randomly visiting wasn't an issue. The one time they did pop in unexpectedly, we were out of the house. If they FaceTimed, I made a point to be in bed feeling horribly sick, so I couldn't give a bump up date. I lied my ass off and they just thought I had a rough pregnancy. A week ago, after an argument between myself and a friend, said friend decided to out my husband by messaging my family and included proof. They did it by adding everybody to a group chat, posting screenshots and basically the whole story, then saying, "I'll leave you all to discuss." Then they left the chat and blocked me and my husband. In a transphobic rage, my mother raced to my home and all but beat my front door down. It wasn't pretty. I had to call the cops. I've been disowned, but that hasn't stopped the daily calls and texts coming from my parents, aunts, uncles, siblings, etc., leaving nasty transphobic slurs on my voicemail and other hateful crap. I ended up crying to my friend yesterday, who told me that I should have been honest with my family, as it would have saved me a lot of heartache. That, or said we miscarried and then adopted later. I'm not happy that things played out the way they did. I just feel so sad now. Maybe it was wrong to lie to my family, but I feel like I had no choice. Edit, because I figured I'd put this in the main text. My husband has always encouraged me to maintain a relationship with my family, however it was mostly for his sake. Personally, I mentally checked out years ago, but when they met him, they welcomed him with open arms and treated him like a son. Yes, it was conditional on him being presumed cisgender. However, we never intended for them to find out. He felt a familial love that he's never had from his own family before, which is why I kept my relationship with my parents at his request. If it weren't for him, I most likely would have cut them off a long time ago. I'm sad that this has happened. But most of that sadness is for my husband rather than for me. Also, the friend in this story who outed him is obviously no longer a friend, and never will be again. The other friend who said I should have told the truth is on thin ice. Update. I got caught up in some other stuff outside Reddit for a few hours. Firstly, Thank you all so much for the overwhelming amount of support and care. I wish I could reply to everybody. Y'all are right that my husband is one tough cookie and he's too wonderful for his own good sometimes. Secondly, I'm sorry to all the transphobes that were upset by my post. It must be horrible being so fragile. Get well soon. Thirdly, after reading all of your comments, my husband and I decided that moving will be the best thing for us. It's scary because it's such a big change and we'll be in an unfamiliar place, but we're looking forward to living in a more LGBTQIA+ friendly area. I've asked a friend to call in a welfare check on this ex-friend since they are technically missing, but I'm washing my hands of this whole situation and anything to do with this person. Again, thank you all so much for the love and support. Final update. Hi all, it's been over 3 months since my post blew up on Am I the Asshole? I messaged the mods for approval for an update, but unfortunately that was not possible due to the controversial nature of my original, and I completely understand. Firstly, thank you all for the support. I was absolutely blown away and never expected for my post to blow up as much as it did. Secondly, husband, baby and I are safe. We moved about 3 hours away from our old place and we're very happy. We have lots more space, which is a blessing and a curse. A blessing because I can finally have a home studio now, and husband has enough space for a workshop. A curse because there's more rooms to clean. Baby is thriving. We've made new. Husband and I are missing my family despite everything that has happened. We've cut contact and I don't know if we'll ever be ready to re-establish that contact. It hurts and it sucks, but I know it's for the best. My sister has tried reaching out, but my parents are too stubborn. Now on to an update on our friend who outed my husband. I ended up calling a welfare check on them as nobody heard from them for over a month, and none of our friends wanted to call it in themselves due to them being homeless. It was difficult to track them down and they weren't high priority despite them presenting as manic the last time somebody saw them. Unfortunately their body was recovered a little over 2 weeks ago. After their car was found, my husband and I were distraught, and still don't feel like it's quite real. We attended their funeral and said our goodbyes. We are considering speaking to a grief counselor together as we've experienced a lot of loss from this whole thing. So that's about it. Not the happiest update, but I thought I'd hop on and share it anyway. Stories number 19. I was removed from my mother's care by DCFS when I was 11 years old due to allegations of SA posed against my stepfather. He was convicted of those crimes, but took a plea deal which meant he'd be out by the time I was 13, and from what I can remember I don't even know that he served those 2 full years anyway. I was his primary victim. I don't remember how old I was when it started, but the earliest he admitted to was when I was 8. I don't know if my mom knew before DCFS got involved or if she found out afterwards, but now I don't think it would have mattered to her if she was aware. After being put into temporary custody of the state while the legal issues were sorted out, eventually I was placed with a relative and her husband, who later adopted me when it was clear my mother wouldn't be getting me back. My adoptive parents put me in therapy, got me the help I needed. Did everything they could to make me feel safe again. Something they never prevented me from was speaking to my mother. I was always able to call or text her, and she was always allowed to come visit me, but I could never go and see her. I didn't really question it as a kid. I assumed it was some stipulation the courts made. I believed growing up that the reason my mom hadn't gotten me back was because of neglect, I guess. I assumed that the court thought it was partly her fault that I had been left unattended with that man so often. Or that it took someone else noticing I was physically injured for something to be done about it. My adoptive parents never challenged these assumptions I had, and they always told me that they would never stop me from having a relationship with my mom so long as that's what I wanted. Once I turned 18, my mom and I started talking more frequently, but we didn't see each other in person often. I never really thought much of it at first, but as the years went by I started questioning the circumstances of my removal and subsequent adoption. I was confused as to why a woman with no prior issues with the law would have had her child taken from her in such a cut and dry way. I decided to ask my adoptive parents about it, and they very gently informed me that my mother was told that in order for her to regain custody of me, her husband, my abuser, would be required to leave the home, and could not under any circumstances come near me, not only because he was an offender but because I was the victim. My mother evidently could not meet these conditions, and so I was adopted by my relatives. When I worked up the courage to ask my mom if it was true, she didn't deny it. She told me she loved him, that he was a good man who made a mistake. They said that she could have her daughter or she could stay with her husband, and so she chose him. She picked him over me. I don't even know what to do with the things I'm feeling now. I feel sick just thinking about it. She's my mother, and she knew what he did. He was convicted of sexually abusing her 11-year-old child, and she refused to leave him. For the past 12 years she has willingly slept in a bed next to the man that assaulted her daughter. She has stayed married to the man who hurt me. My adoptive parents said they were advised by the therapist to let me figure it out in my own time, as my mother, despite picking that man over me, never made any move to have me near him again. She just wasn't willing to make him leave so that I could be with her. Evidently the therapist thought it would be more detrimental in the long run to keep me from communicating with my mother entirely. None of that makes me feel better. The past 2 days have felt like a nightmare. I don't understand how she could stay with him. I don't understand why she chose a monster over her child. I'm trying to understand why my adoptive parents didn't tell me, but to be honest I don't really understand their reasoning either. Edit. I said this in a comment, but I thought I'd clarify here too. I'm not necessarily mad at my parents, I'm just overwhelmed with the reality of this situation. I don't know how I feel, but I know I need time to feel it. I am still in therapy, which is related to the abuse I experienced, so I do have a professional to rely on for guidance if I need it. And I don't think I'll ever be able to speak to my mother again. I can't get past this to forgive her or understand her reasoning, and I'm not sure I will ever want to try. Update, November 29th, 2024, 5 days later. Hello, I guess I wanted to write a little bit of an update. I didn't expect that many people to see the post. Honestly, I just needed to vent and I didn't want to dump any of that on my friends or family. I had a therapy session earlier in the week, so I was able to bring this revelation up to my therapist, and we're going to work on ways to help me through processing this. That's obviously something that's going to take time. But I'm sure eventually I'll find a way to live with it. I guess right now I still don't know how to unpack any of the feelings I have about this. I do understand why my adoptive parents went about it the way they did in the moment. Being given that information was just a lot to comprehend, deal with, and I felt betrayed, not necessarily by them, but I think I did put some of those feelings onto them that wasn't really fair, and I did try to apologize, but they aren't upset with me for it. And they felt I didn't have anything to be sorry for. They know firsthand how difficult this is for me, and they told me they were already expecting the reaction I had. My adoptive mom said that if she had been in my shoes, she would have been upset too, even if that feeling wasn't entirely directed at the right people. I did speak to them about how I felt, and I asked if they could tell me a little more about why they decided to handle it the way they did. They said that when they got custody of me and saw all the ways the trauma from my earlier childhood manifested, they wanted to do everything to make sure I would be able to grow up as cared for and well-adjusted as possible. When the therapist encouraged them not to tell me the truth or challenge my belief that I'd been removed from my mom because of neglect, they followed that advice. The doctors and my parents thought it best for me to understand my mother's choice on my own. They said that I had already been failed by so many adults in my life that were supposed to protect me, and that they didn't want to add to that list. My adoptive dad also mentioned wanting me to be able to enjoy at least part of my childhood without something like that revelation hanging over my head, which, looking back at all of it, I really appreciate. I don't remember much of my childhood up until I was put into my adoptive parents' custody, and what I can remember isn't great. But the childhood they gave me made up for that in spades. I know the choices my adoptive parents made for me were made with my best interest in mind. I love them, and I know everything they did was out of love for me too. I feel like people misinterpreted what I was saying in my last post about my feelings towards them, so I just wanted to clarify that part of it. Regarding my mother, I essentially told her that I wasn't interested in speaking again. Given everything I know now, I don't know how she took it because I've since blocked her number. My parents have agreed to reiterate that message for me if she contacts them, but I don't think she will. I'm never reaching out to her again. I can't do it. I think part of me is always going to be wondering why she did the things she did, but based on all the answers she's given to my questions so far, I'm not sure her honesty would be very helpful to me in the long run. Thank you for your words of encouragement and kindness. I really needed them in that moment, and I truly appreciate you all for it.